No problem. If you have a good husband, why don't you share it?
Can I answer that?
Yes, I'm going to ask if you truly care about your co-sisters.
No, I care about me. There's enough people in the world for people to get married and not have to share a husband.
No, there isn't. Certain things has to be done for the greater rights of the community.
Do you know the Muta man, the Muta man, the Muta man? Do you know the Muta man who lives on Tower Lane? Do you know the Muta man, the Muta man, the Muta man? Do you know the Muta man who lives on Tower Lane?
Hotel, motel, Holiday Inn. If your second wife starts acting up, threaten her next of kin.
You're out of a job, boy. You're finished. You're finished. Allah, you're finished. You're finished. You're finished. Allah, you're finished.
Us Dawa guys are just perverted individuals.
Allah, you're finished.
Aha! Aha!
All right. We are live for the first time in a long while. At least for Mary, I did have was intended to be a member stream. That wasn't last week, but a first regular stream in quite a while. The last time we were on with Mary, we were looking at Maleek's little conversation with a Muslim woman and his amazing defense of polygamy. And as a result, we had some interesting characters come into the chat. Not so many Muslims come into the chat, but
we had various heretics, cult members, and other enemies of God come into the chat who were not just Muslims, but others who hate Christ and his message and his word. So felt the need to address it this time. And also, this is a common thing that Muslims want to run to. Polygamy? How can you be against polygamy? There is polygamy in the Bible. Therefore, your God endorses it. Because that's how it works. If something exists in the Bible, it is endorsed by God. I'm not sure how their brains work like that, but one portion of it is that in Islam, Muhammad endorses everything that he does not explicitly and fully rebuke. So if Allah sees anything at all and he doesn't thoroughly rebuke it, that is an active endorsement of it. It's not how our Bible has ever worked. And we will get into that in a moment. But we have found a fairly typical, very low IQ take from a very typical Dawa boy. I kind of am being redundant here on polygamy to kind of present to you the kinds of arguments that you get from Muslims and people who share with them that kind of worldview and that kind of relationship with God.
Yep. So as I was saying, this is a follow-up to that stream. Mary's so out of practice, she forgot how the how the introduction works, because I didn't get a chance to say welcome back to Reason Answers, everyone. You're home for the
crackhead clown individuals.
And we do definitely have a crackhead clown individual here to look at today. Orthodox Muslim, giving his take on polygamy and how him as an expert Bible scholar knows that it is very, very, very biblical or something. Gar Puffy said Orthodox Mormon. It does seem to be a common trait. It does seem to be a common trait with false religions of various kinds. That
I just want to point out, again, I've pointed this out many times. The most obvious trait of a false prophet is that he begins prophesying and delivering messages about all the places his penis can go that he previously said it shouldn't. This was true for Joseph Smith. This was true for Muhammad. This is like the most common, obvious, any idiot can see it sort of false prophet. If all of a sudden he's like, oh, listen to me, I'm all about holiness and God, and I represent God, and by the way, I can have sex with all of these women and girls and animals and boys, that then you know he's a fake. Like, this is not like 500 IQ type of thing here. This is like, if you have a 70 IQ, you ought to be able to recognize this. But unfortunately, they probably already suffered from way too much cousin marriage, because Muhammad's original followers did not follow it, or did not recognize this. Neither did Joseph Smith's original followers. All the rest of you gotta be smarter than this. This is just sad.
And Phil said, new study shows polygamy leads to higher levels of crime, violence, poverty, and gender inequality. And Mary will be talking about stuff like that today. Yep. For sure. And Carol B said, sexual privilege is a surefire sign.
I just call them penis prophets. That's what I've called them. Because they're always prophesying about all the places their penises could go.
That is true. That is true. And John Wilson said, good to see you back. Good to see you as well, John Wilson. All right. So I don't know what this is about. Did Muhammad have a girl voice? But anyway, we'll start off with this short video by Orthodox Muslim. We'll just go ahead and play that through. It's only 2 minutes long to get a feel for the kind of argument that we're facing, not just from Muslims, but from others as well, on how the Bible is supposedly very much in favor of polygamy.
Christians attack the Prophet Muhammad for having many wives and even accuse him of adultery.
True.
This is a
quite problematic
position to hold. The Bible endorses polygamy.
Wait, did he misspell adultery?
Yeah, he misspelled adultery. He had so few adultery. Adultery. It's adultness. There's child tree and adultery. So, anyway.
Great start there. Start there, Libbyano.
Yeah.
This is a quite problematic position to hold. The Bible endorses polygamy.
Okay, let's just go back into that.
Yeah.
They shall become one flesh. And so the oneness of one husband and one not wife who are cohabiting. So one husband lives with one wife. This somehow is an endorsement. He immediately jumps to, if you continue, that this is an endorsement of polygamy.
Yeah, he said this is very problematic. And then he says why it's not problematic. Why did he put this up here? Why is he?
I don't know. He's like, well, people just think that this contradicts polygamy. But this existed, so clearly God liked it because he talked about it.
Snoopy says it's an adultery. Yes, it is.
Yes, it is an adultery. An adult pride.
This is polygamy and concubinage. For instance, we read in the book of Exodus, if he takes another wife, he must not deprive the first one of her food, clothing, and marital rights. In Deuteronomy, the same thing is echoed. If a man has two wives and he loves one but not the other, and both bear him sons, he must not give the rights of the firstborn to the son of the wife he loves, in preference his actual firstborn, the son of the...
What's amusing is that this actually contradicts Islam, that cannot deprive her of rights, because of course in Islam you absolutely deprive women of their rights. And this is not saying, oh, you should take wives, multiple wives, you should take as many wives as you please. That's a good thing. It's dealing, we will talk more about this in a moment, but almost all of the Old Testament law are biconditionals. So given X is a given. It already exists. It's there. Given this, then if this other thing happens, then Y. And we'll get into that some more in a moment. Go ahead.
All right, continuing on.
The wife he does not love. Very clear. The God of the Bible permits.
I like how this is very clear, and then she has a non-clear image.
Wait, he went from endorse to permit. Weird. So in the Old Testament, under the old law, something was permitted, but again, he requires endorsing. Let's go on.
Mm-hmm.
Polygamy. The prophet David, for instance, had many wives and concubines. We read in 2 Samuel, after he left Hebron, David took more concubines and wives in Jerusalem, and more sons and daughters were born to him.
Indeed, yes.
Christians may now throw the prophet David under the bus and call him.
He is a sinner. David is a sinner. He murdered people. So yeah, he murdered Uriah. So that would definitely be a sin there. In terms of violating God's explicit law, not just violating standards that are even beyond the law, but he violated God's explicit law as well. But anyway, go ahead.
Yeah. So 1 second here. So Le Rubens Rick says that the audio might be delayed 10 seconds. I checked. It should be working properly. So there's a 20-second delay, but it looks like it's accurate, and my stream settings are set correctly.
Nope, you are definitely delayed. I just started listening to you. Very odd. Your mouth's off. No.
I don't know why, but here's what we're gonna.
I'm gonna mute you.
Here's what I can do. I can just take the delay.
There's a lag between your mouth and when your mouth appears to be moving on there. So our visuals are very slightly ahead of the audio.
Very slightly, or 10 seconds?
Well, it's noticeable. Several seconds. I would say 2-3 seconds.
Several seconds. 2-3 seconds.
Yeah, I mean, like I'm still talking, and then your mouth is moving, and then your audio comes out a bit later. So
very interesting. Very interesting. To me, so okay. So I'm guessing that the audio delay for the 20-second delay is off. It's obviously not off 20 seconds. That would be more obvious. Yeah, about 3 seconds. So I'm guessing that's probably off. I did redo things. So here, all right, we are back, and hopefully there is no more delay. Oh, John said now buffering. Yes, that's what will happen when I stop the stream and restart it. But hopefully,
yep, it matches now.
Hopefully, okay. So
it's really hard listening to you twice, by the way, because I'm trying to listen to the audio of you from seconds before for me that matches your lips and see whether it matches your lips while you're still talking off there, because of course, obviously you still have to be talking. But anyway,
all right.
It seems to all
Yep,
be
everyone agrees it's fixed. So what the problem is there's a mismatch between the delay. Oops. So the video and the audio are delayed separately on the 20-second delay. I guess there's a mismatch there. I'll do an unlisted stream and figure that out later. But for today, no delay. Yep. And we got the problem solved there. Songs of Relief says, nice unibrow. Indeed, nice photo here.
All right, let's keep going.
I'm a filthy sinner, but this slander of prophets won't work in this instance, because it was God himself who blessed him with this many wives.
Oh, notice the term blessed. The wives themselves are a blessing.
Mm-hmm.
Samuel, I gave your master's house to you, and your master's wives into your arms. I gave you all Israel and Judah. And if all of this had been too little, I would have given you even more.
So this is about, hang on. This is about
doesn't mean more power,
his power over everything. And this is right after, by the way, the context of this, I'm sure most people recognize it, is where he is being upbraided by Nathan for having murdered Uriah and taken what was not his. to be able to take. And the point of that is saying that he had this legitimate, allowed legal power over all of these things, over all of Judah and over all of Israel and over the household, having control of the household of the royal women was a signifier of power. So you already have the power over all the women who have power signification to them. It's why Solomon would not marry off David's final wife, who the excuse was one of Solomon's brothers wanted to marry off David's final wife, who had not actually had a consummated marriage, but it basically had been like a maid to David in his final illness. And it's kind of like, oh, well, I've kind of fallen in love with her. And, she's not really a wife, so it's fine for me to marry her. But the reason why he refused is because she was in the household of the king. And as a king's woman, historically, that means that marrying her off to someone else would signify his claim to royal status, basically, to have the power over the woman. This does not, by the way, mean that he married Saul's wives. There's actually no indication that he ever married Saul's wives, but he's saying that those women are legitimately in your power through the law of the land at this time. If you had wanted to choose any of those women, you could have chosen them, but rather you went for a woman who cannot legitimately be yours because she is married to someone else. That is what this is about. This is about the power that he has. That's why I gave you all Israel and Judah and the master's house. So they are in his power. That doesn't mean arms as in you're having intercourse with them. That means like you're completely within your power, completely within your domain. That if you had chosen one of these women, it would have been within the bounds of the law of the land. You had this authority according to the normative cultural expectations of that time that God chose not to tell you you can't do. Not that God wanted you to sleep with all of his wives or make all of his wives your wives. He's saying you could have. These women could have been yours, but instead you went and stole somebody else's wife. Of all the women that would give you this thrill that you've like, I have power, you had that one. So, yeah.
As Tommy says here, God isn't bragging about giving David more wives. It is saying David got what Saul had. It was status. Yes. But sword of the Lord, and I'm very much putting that in scare quotes here, says, she's babbling over scripture. David has 17 wives before he had Uriah killed.
None of whom were Saul's wives. Just be clear. Check them out.
Besides the fact God said he gave King David his women.
Yes, so, power over them. He didn't marry any of Saul's wives. There's no reference to that. That's not what is actually in view here. Yeah, he did marry a lot of women. He married one of Saul's daughters. He married a number of different women. He married Abigail. He married some foreign women to get alliances. He married a number of women for a number of reasons, including Beth, and all of which were with technically each one individually was within the bounds. But we'll visit David's marriages and how they set up the destruction of the kingdom again in a little bit. But if you do not understand it, try not opening your mouth and embarrassing yourself. But anyway, let's move on.
Yeah, for sure. I assume here that Sword is a polygamist, or at least wants to be a polygamist.
Yeah, he thinks that David is having sex with his own mother-in-law against the rule, against God's law. He thinks that that's what this means, is that, God wants David to have sex with his mother-in-law, who would be the mother of one of his wives.
Mm-hmm.
Just nuts. Anyway, keep going.
Yep, continuing on here. But I did pull back up the verse here because, you know, she's babbling over scripture. Babbling means, you know, properly exegeting it and seeing that this is clearly about more than just wives right here.
I gave you all of Israel. So according to Sword of the Lord, that means that David was married to all of Israel and he could have sex to absolutely everyone there. So what Nathan is saying, it's actually fine for him to have sex with Bathsheba. So here we go. We have proper exegesis from Sword of the Lord here.
So the way that Libbyano and apparently Sword read this is, I gave you your master's wives. I would have given you even more wives.
Yes, all Israel and Judah, wives. I would have given you even more.
No, that's not part of the verse. That's not part of the verse. You just ignore that part.
All right. Let's keep going.
Given you even more. God himself says that he gave David all his wives. But it doesn't end here.
No, yeah.
God says that he was pleased with David in everything that he did, except for one incident, the incident with Bathsheba. We read in 1 Kings. For David had done what was right in the eyes of the Lord, and had not failed to keep any of the Lord's commandments in all of his days, except in the case of Uriah the Hittite. And let's not forget.
let's go say that. Uriah the Hittite.
Yeah, the Hittite.
The Hittite. That's pretty funny.
Well, and change the I tuning, which I mean that could just be a language issue, but adding an extra syllable, that's interesting.
Yeah. Straight up. So,
and let's not forget.
So in his role as a king, that was the only kingly crime that he performed. He did not perform any other kingly crimes, which is like just about the only king of Israel that you could say that about. He performed one kingly crime.
Mm-hmm.
That was the kingly crime. Just because it's not a explicitly forbidden crime does not mean that was necessarily a good idea, wise, or following the softer guidance of God. And yes, he is LARPing Testifies video, but I love that
this is an older video. Yeah, so this is an older video. Orthodox Muslim definitely used to do that. I don't think he still does, but he definitely used to do that. We noticed, dude. We noticed.
Yeah, I still like the misspelling in the very first slide. It's pretty hilarious.
Yeah, Testify wouldn't do that. No. But I did rewind it here so Mary can rehear about Uriah.
The case of Uriah the Hittite. And let's not forget.
It's got an R in it, too.
Jesus.
Uriah the Hittite.
Hertitite. Yeah, that definitely looks like Hertitite to me. All right, let's keep going.
The Lord's commandments and all of his days, except in the case of Uriah the Hittite. And let's not forget, according to Christianity, Jesus himself is the God of the Old Testament. Therefore, Jesus is pleased with concubinage and polygamy.
All right. So
Well, hold on, because we have a very appropriate comment here from Carol. They tend to ignore the opinion of their precious prophet Esau on what marriage is, but he said Jesus is the God of the Old Testament, so Jesus approves of this.
And he approves of all the things that he did. Approves. And by the way, guess what David did during his flight? He ate the showbread. So that was not counted as breaking the commandment, even though he wasn't a Levite and ate the showbread. So what do you think it means, kept all his commandments? This is in his role as a king. He did not commit kingly crimes. That is what's in view.
You're avoiding to debate me on polygamy. Stop acting like a child. Oh yes, I'm.
Oh, don't worry. I'll just.
I'm the one acting like a child. I'm in a chat spamming that someone is avoiding them on a debate. Yes.
All right.
Yes. That's totally me. You got me. I'm very childish.
And Salam al-Masih, Samawi. Salam al-Masih. Yeah, Thaddeus is totally running. All right, let's go ahead and
running.
bring up my.
I brought up all his comments.
But you're running.
But I'm running.
Yeah. Why don't you bring up my, I think I'm sharing it already, my presentation. I have used ChatGPT to rearrange my slides and make them look prettier. Tell me if you guys like the way they look, or if they are too hard to read somewhere. I had to go back in and fix the words because it sometimes decided that it had too many words on the page and just deleted some of them.
Well, I mean, that is good style to not put too many words on a page. I will say It's right. You do sometimes have way too many words on a page.
That is true, because I use mine as reference material for later. That's why there are so many words on them, because it helps. So let us start with our thesis.
Before you dive in, I just a little preview, right? So Thaddeus Girl says, Jesus brought Mary back to the beginning. No divorce, no remarriage for all Christians. Indeed, right? For some reason, Orthodox Muslim put Genesis 2:24 up there. And so if we're going to actually respect Jesus, and we can't just say, well, in the Old Testament, God approved of polygamy. Therefore, that's what Jesus would have said. Because, of course, Jesus teaches quite explicitly on this subject.
Whereas in the Old Testament, you have no explicit.
You're right. If you emailed me, I didn't respond. I have been busy. That is true. I accept that blame, assuming you actually did email me. I will try to get back to you. But telling me I'm a child running from you is not helpful, right? I mean, did you see any other content on this channel in the last month? Right?
Nope.
Was I just avoiding you? Did not put out anything because I was so terrified of you? Or maybe, just maybe, I was very busy with other things. I don't know.
Yep.
I don't know.
So.
All right. Mary, you have the floor.
Thank you. So, polygamy, our thesis, is that it defaces God's design and it defies Christ's teachings. So, if you are a polygamist, you are a defacer of God's design, and you are defiant against Christ and his enemy. So, to be clear, you need to understand that Genesis itself is theology. It is not only explicit theology, it is also implicit theology. God expresses theology through the genre of creation, of the creation account, and through the means of type, shadow, and exemplar in Genesis. This is what all the Jews understood. This is what all the Christian fathers understood. This is the proper understanding of Genesis that is expressing theology, not just telling stories. Okay? There are choices that are made about what is described and what is not described. There's a whole lot of history and only a few things that are worth describing. So, let us look at the account of the creation of mankind. In Genesis 1:26 to 1:27, it reads, this is ESV, you can choose your own version if you prefer, but here you go. Then God said, let us make man, and this is the generic term for mankind, in our image, after our likeness, and let them, that's plural, have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the heavens, and over the livestock, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps on the earth. So God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created him. So we have mankind, singular again. And then we have the him, singular, male, because it's a male word. Then we have a male and a female, he created them. So these are indefinite terms. So it's not males generally, females generally. These are singular, indefinite words. So it's a male and a female are the them that were created in the image of God. So Genesis' very model is monogamy from creation. Mankind is created as an imager of God. One female and one male is explicitly within the human imaging. So what he is creating there is one female and one male as the imaging of himself. This mirrors the us language of God himself. Let us make man in our image. Us plural, our plural. And the singularity, then God, that's Elohim, it has a plural addition to it, but it's said with singular verbs. So it's plural and singular together in its grammatical form. It is a mass noun indicating the extent and expansive and infinitude of God, with a singular said. And then you have the singular said having us, plural making, and our plural image, singular, after our plural likeness, singular. So the likeness that humanity is made after is God's likeness. Our there must be God. Can't be the angels. He's not making them in the image of angels. It is taught in Scripture that we are made as God imagers, not angelic imagers. This is God speaking, and plural and singular simultaneously. Our image, one image. Our likeness, one likeness. Made mankind male and female. So it is a male and a female that is this imaging unit.
Mm-hmm.
God's plurality is itself a limited plurality. God is not 50 or 60 or 12 or 5. God is 3. Father, Son, Holy Spirit in himself, and he created to image him a limited plurality that he defines as 2, male and female. And so in the two-ness, through that two-ness, there are multiplication through the vehicle of the two-ness that he chose to make. Go ahead.
So I'm going to pause you for a second to deal with this moron. Of course, the guy who wants to promote polygamy also totally butchers the Bible. In the New Testament, it says a woman has no authority to speak in the congregation over men. You're the one ignoring the Bible. I was unaware this was a church service.
First of all, this is not a church service. Secondly, you are not in Christ's church. You are not in any church. You are not a member of any church. You are a pagan. Because you are a heathen, I can teach you anything. I am superior to you because you are a heathen and I am a Christian. You will go down to hell in judgment unless you repent. So I have every authority over you in the world.
Mm-hmm. Indeed you do. We could discuss what that passage actually means, but it's kind of irrelevant because you're not part of the congregation and we're not in front of the congregation. So that passage is completely and totally irrelevant. I think that's what we're probably going to see a lot from you, is just taking things completely out of context and using them however you want. But Joshua makes a very good point. Hold on, Mary. Let me finish. Joshua makes a very good point. If Sword is right and it is sinful for you to be speaking, he's participating in that sin. Right?
Mm-hmm.
He's here. He's participating in it. I guess he's part of that sin. But his response was, "What the fuck you talking about, idiot?" Yeah, he's willingly participating in what something he claims is sinful, and yet he doesn't see how that could possibly be a problem.
And I want to point out how that sword of Satan here is very much like his master in the garden. The first thing that Satan does is what? Twist the scripture. He shows up, twists the scripture as a son of Satan, as the seed of the serpent, as not as a child of Abraham, but as the son of a devil, as Christ would identify him. He immediately twists scripture because that is what Satan's seed does. They twist scripture and then they make themselves the standard, which is what he is doing. So if we continue on, we find that God continues.
Oh, man.
Let's go ahead and continue and ignore him.
I was going to say, I don't think this needs any comment. It's that dumb, but I just had to bring it up to laugh.
All right. So, and God blessed them. And God said to them, "Be fruitful, multiply, and fill the earth, and subdue it. Have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the heavens, and over every living thing that moves on the earth." So God's command of imaging involves the ontology of the marital pair as image creators. God's bara and mankind para. So God creates and mankind, multiplies. So they are different in nature. This is in the image of God, our role showing God's dominion and making his name great on earth involves our multiplication, which is inherently linked to this marital pair being created. They are created as a marital pair to be the imagers of God together. God's command also instructs the marital pair to exercise dominion over material creation and to subdue the earth as his imager in creation. So, emphasizing again, Christ is the image of God. We are after the image of God. We do not do what God does as God does it, but we are to be his representatives, declaring his name on the earth through our activities. Our very lives are supposed to be an imaging of God. And what he has created here to be this imaging, this fundamental unit of imaging is a husband and a wife. A husband and wife making a family is an imaging unit. Now, we turn to Genesis 2, we find that the Lord God said, "It is not good that man should be alone. I will make him a helper fit for him." Now, the word here for helper is a word used only of God in a positive sense in any other place, often of the Holy Spirit, but also of God generally. That with God, this kind of help is a help without which you are helpless. It's not like, oh, he needs a little assistant. No, he needs that with which he is not helpless. He cannot be an imager of God alone as a man without the wife to fulfill the role of multiplication and dominion. And to multiply, to create through multiplication these other units that will then go off and do the same thing. So, this is, and the fit for him, this is corresponding to him, like across from him. Usually it's used for people facing one another or things that are symmetrical in some way, right? We continue on, we find that the man gave names to all the livestock and to the birds of the heavens and to every beast of the field, but for Adam there was not found a helper fit for him. This is not God figuring out, oh, he needs a helper. Oh my goodness, nothing I created is fit for him. No, this is an instruction to us so that we as readers understand that there is nothing that is fit for Adam except for his one singular wife, who is ontologically of the same stuff he is. So though man is an imager alone, the woman is an imager alone, the man is an imager alone, they are not empowered to fulfill their role except through the marital pair, which is the pattern from the beginning that is created. Then it says, so the Lord God caused a deep sleep to fall upon the man, and while he slept, he took one of his ribs and closed it up the place with its closed up its place with flesh. And the rib that the Lord God had taken from the man, he made into a woman and brought her to the man. Then the man said, and this is the first prophecy of a human being. This is a prophetic declaration. This at last is bone of my bone and flesh of my flesh. She shall be called woman because she has been taken out of man. And the word for woman is the same word as for wife. Therefore, a man shall leave his father and mother and hold fast to his wife, and they shall become one flesh. To become one flesh with his wife. This shows an image of departing from the household and forming another household with a singular other one. It is a oneness from two, period. It is rectification of what was lacking. The only thing that God ever said was not good has been rectified through the creation of plurality in mankind to make specifically the married pair, specifically to the exclusion of all others. The future man will have a house of one father and one mother, his own marital pair as he's growing up. He will then recapitulate the marital pair that his parents are and that their parents were before them and the parents were before them by leaving the familial union of 3 that he had with his parents, 3 plus his other sibling, to form a new pair, a new nucleus, a new instance of multiplication into the new fundamental unit of society. God's society, its fundamental unit, is a husband-wife. That is what God made to be the unit of society. Not husband, wife, grown children, aunts, uncles, whatever. No, husband, wife is the fundamental unit. They have connections to one another. We have connections within society, but the fundamental unit of society and of an active imager couple able to fulfill what God has given for us to fulfill is the husband-wife. He will then cleave to his wife, not give himself a part of her, to become one, has a meaning. Husband and wife are one. They will become one flesh, a mystical union that mirrors their pre-formation unity. From one, there were 2, then they become one again through the marital unity. It also echoes the ontological unity of God. Like the people who want to, are interested in social trinities go to this. I don't think that that's right. I think that that is actually stressing that, in creation, we as created beings, we are finite. We must have, even though we share an ontological humanity, we are different instantiations of humanity, and so have ontological distinctions from one another. We're not the exact same stuff, the same molecules as one another, even though we are all humans. But this is a deliberate mirroring of this. There is no option here of a division in the man's loyalty. His cleaving to his wife excludes his parents and certainly excludes all others. So, we continue on. After the fall, we find the first polygamist. The first polygamist is Lamech. He said to his wives, Ada and Zillah, hear my voice. You wives of Lamech, listen to what I say. I have killed a man for wounding me, a young man for striking me. And by the way, there's actually an and in the Hebrew there. So this is almost certainly intended to be multiple murders. So he has murdered multiple people for having insulted him, striking him, and hurting him somewhat. Not trying to kill him. This is not self-defense. This is someone hurt me, so I slaughtered him. If Cain's revenge is 7-fold, then Lamech's is 77-fold. What is this an example of? This is an example of the sword of Satan here. It is an example of sword of Satan who says, I get to read out of God's actions whatever I want. So whenever God spared Cain, showed mercy to Cain, it provided a pretext for a pervert, the first pervert in humanity, who is Lamech. Lamech is your first God pervert who lies about God and misinterprets what he does and what he says. It gave him grounds for claiming that, if God shows mercy to Cain, well then I'm totally justified because Abel didn't do anything to Cain, and Cain was protected, and these people, they one of them hurt me and one of them insulted me, so I'm totally in the right. God justifies what I do. And it is not accidental that the very first exemplar of sin after Cain's murder is Lamech. Lamech is the example that happens when there is not justice shown and clear enough calling out of evil that it gives grounds to perverts like Lamech, who married 2 women and murdered people. So God chose mercy. So Lamech becomes the second exemplar of sin, the very first pervert of God's word. And again, over and over and over again in the Bible, perversion of religion is tied to sexual perversion in God's exemplars. He is drawing out the fact that Lamech was a physical pervert, just as he was a religious pervert. This is not an accident. So because again and again, God compares harlotry and adultery and fornication to faithlessness to God himself. This is faithlessness to God by distorting and perverting God's word. So of course he's a sexual pervert too. Of course he is the first exemplar of 2 wives. It is absolutely no accident that the only other thing we know about Lamech, who is a blasphemous pervert, is that he is the first bigamist that we have ever heard of. So Abraham's adultery is also built into his disobedience. The second explicit man who has 2 women is Abraham. He does not have a concubine. He is committing adultery with a slave, and I will show that. And this was totally allowed within his culture there. You could have sex with slaves, just like Muhammad had sex with slaves without making them into a concubine. There is a big difference between a concubine and a slave that you're having sex with. Hagar was a slave that Abraham was having sex with, was not a concubine. And I will prove that in a second. So, Abraham's spiritual adultery is linked to his physical adultery. Abraham's acceptance of Hagar is spiritual adultery, as it is disbelief in the promises of God and belief in his own ability to bring about the ends that he desires. God promises something, well, I will do it. So his spiritual adultery, of course, is linked to something sexual. Why wouldn't it be? Sarai begins by explicitly blaming God as she suggests seizing control of God's promises. When she says, God has shut my womb, God has done this. There's a parallel here with Eve's presumptive claiming of Cain as the incarnation in Genesis 4:1. Eve says, I have got myself a man, even the Lord. She identifies Cain as having been God himself incarnate. She had the expectation that the seed that she was promised would come to her, and she presumptively seizes control of that promise and says, this is it. Well, Sarai here is claiming control of God's promises. Well, I will make it happen. I will do this. Hagar's Egyptian identity is also not a throwaway detail. It is mentioned for a reason. It's a key element that's brought out to emphasize his faithlessness, which is in parallel with the calf-building spiritual adulterers among those who came out of Egypt. The references to gods of Egypt. Nothing good comes out of Egypt. There's a promise that in the future, Egypt, which is an image of dissipation, throughout the Old Testament, there is a promise that Egypt itself will be brought to Christ. The places where there is the most dissipation will be brought in subjugation to the Messiah, to God, and will believe in him. But until that happens, they are the imagery of depravity. And the result of their offspring is the Arab race, who have become one of the greatest concerted enemies of God. If Sarai had not disbelieved God, and Abraham had not happily followed along and listened to his wife whenever she had a terrible idea and committed adultery with his Egyptian slave, we would not have Islam now. That doesn't mean that Muhammad's descended from him. Not at all. This is not about bodily descent as such, but the Arabs as a group, their identity as a group comes from Ishmael and involved a whole bunch of other people who are not genetically directly descended from Abraham. But that is where they derived their identity. The reason why we have Islam now at some level is because Abraham was not faithful to his wife. So Abraham, having committed spiritual adultery already, having turned away from God's promises, disbelieved in them, went in to a slave and got her pregnant, had sex with the slave whom he did not make his concubine. Let us show that this is the case. So Abraham's acceptance of Hagar is physical adultery. It even violates the provisions of Mosaic law. So under Mosaic law, it is adultery because she is not elevated to concubine, but she's used as a walking womb. She's used as a substitute person just to get pregnant. She is still Sarah's slave after Abraham impregnates her. That shows she is not a concubine. She is Sarah's slave. That this is not permissible under the Mosaic law, which is ironically a portion that a passage that Orthodox pulled out as, look, you shall not, mistreat them if you take another, that kind of thing. That is actually assuming that more likely than not, you'll take a concubine first, and then later, whenever you inherit and have more money, you'll take another wife. Well, don't mistreat the concubine, because now that you have like a legit wife rather than the slave wife that you've elevated concubine, you cannot take away any of her privileges. Well, if you have a wife already and get another wife, then you can't take away her privileges either. The same with the older and younger son. That's all about having taken a wife, anticipating that you're not going to have a child with one. You have your favorite wife. You anticipate you're not going to have a child with her. You have another wife. You have that children with that wife. Then your favorite wife has a child. You can't mistreat the unfavored wife's children just because of that, etc. So these are things that are not permissible under the Mosaic law. Mosaic law functions, a large portions of it function as a kind of common law from which you are supposed to reason. And he did not take her as a concubine. She's still a slave. He is not treating her with the respect of a concubine, certainly not treating her with the respect of the mother of his eldest child, but God does not recognize Ishmael as a legitimate son at all, which again shows this was an illegitimate action that was undertaken. It was entirely illegitimate. So there's also the point that in the Old Testament, every example of polygamy brings grief to the people involved. Abraham's polygamy led to Sarah's grief and Hagar's exile as a result of Sarah's anger at Hagar and Hagar's misbehavior and stuff, which was obviously very unhappy for Hagar. Esau was a deliberate polygamist, and his wives grieved his parents. He chose to marry two. They made his parents very unhappy, so he married another one, did not make things any better. Jacob's wives were all deeply unhappy. Leah was unhappy because she wasn't loved, and Rachel because she had few children. Gideon's polygamy led to the slaughter of all of his sons by one of them, who also died horribly. Hannah's life was made miserable by her husband taking a second wife. The second wife was miserable because she wasn't loved and took it out on Hannah. David's polygamy leads to his neglect of his household, which enabled Absalom's entire storyline and a horrific civil war and end. And David's enormous grief at Absalom's death. Solomon's wives caused his alienation from God and the fracturing of his kingdom. Solomon's polygamy is what is assigned, is the activity that is assigned the blame for Solomon's kingdom being broken apart. Polygamy is also always linked to sin. Sarah's accusation of God, very sinful. That's the precipitating event for Abraham's unfaithfulness. The foreignness of Esau's wives is emphasized in a context that points to religious unfaithfulness. So the reason why the foreignness of his wives is emphasized is to make it parallel to the sexual adulteries when foreign idols, etc., etc. Jacob's bad family relations leads to Joseph being sold into slavery and them staging essentially the fake murder of him. Gideon's polygamy is mentioned immediately after the faithlessness of his idolatry, which is called whoring. So first they talk about Gideon whoring after the people whoring after the idol that Gideon makes, and then immediately talks about his polygamy and many sons. Peninnah's cruelty and Elkanah's favoritism are both very sinful. That's Hannah's co-wife and husband. David's polygamy, it only increases his entitlement, leading eventually to murder and Absalom's rebellion. So David has already gotten into the habit of seeing a woman he wants and taking her. Like, oh, well, I want this one. I want that one. I want this one. He sees Bathsheba. Why can't he have that too? Solomon becomes an idolater, seeking to please his wives, and even participates in human sacrifice. There's also a warning for kings. Now, it was expected in this cultural context for all kings to have a number of wives and concubines in the Iron Age in West Asia. So everybody in West Asia, if you're a king, part of being a king is having multiple wives. Yet in Deuteronomy 17:17, God says the king must not take any wives for himself, lest he go astray. It does not say the king must not take wives outside of Israel or many wives outside of Israel, or should only, it's not a warning about, no, you will go astray if you take these foreign wives. No, to multiply wives itself is to court apostasy. And in the Hebrew, this is para, the same multiply of Genesis 1:28. It points to the inversion, a perversion of the multiplication of wives rather than the multiplication of the offspring of one wife. You are ordered to multiply through the one wife that you're supposed to have that's supposed to be one flesh. And instead, it's a warning not to pervert this into a multiplication of wives and multiplication through many wives and adding to yourself many wives when you ought to be adding to yourself children through your one wife. Not an accidental usage of the term, because honestly, the term multiply wives, it is kind of an odd term. It sounds very odd, doesn't it? It's not any less odd in the Hebrew. Looking at all other examples of para, it's not usually used in that way. So this multiplication of wives is being set up as a counterexample to the multiplication that you're supposed to do through your one wife with whom you're supposed to be one flesh. There is also over and over and over and over again in the Old Testament the image of Israel as God's singular bride and the bridegroom as God who is faithful. God, the bridegroom of Israel, has no other wife. He has a singular wife who is Israel. As the collective body of Israel is a singular unity in this imagery. He doesn't have, there's never a term like all of you are like, you're the wives of God. Never uses that term. Singular wife. Israel's always represented as a singular bride of God in the Old Testament, to whom God is faithful, yet who repays him with faithlessness. God's perfection of male faithfulness, it stands in contrast to the sins of men, including prophets, who were not worthy of being the good shepherd. The good shepherd is one and only one, the true bridegroom, God himself. Likewise, Christ is the perfect bridegroom of his singular bride, the church, through which the Gentiles become the proper children of Abraham and God by faith and adoption.
But Mary, you said that God only has one wife. But we had the genius in the chat who I've now given a timeout, and I'm pretty sure is also Lonnie Canada, which will also be given a timeout for being off topic and not interacting with the presentation. He said, but in Matthew 22, it says wedding and it's a plural. So God is being married many times.
No.
You mean the words function differently in different languages And there's a reason the translators haven't made it many weddings?
Correct. All right. So now let's look outside the Bible at what you have to ascribe to God if you're going to say the God's cool with polygamy and he endorses.
Actually, hold on. I do want to actually get so there are like two things from actually one was so stupid I didn't even save it, but one pushback from Lonnie here before you get outside the Bible. The 12 tribes of Israel came from 4 women.
Yeah, and it was wrong. It was.
I don't know how that's supposed to be.
So I don't know how that's supposed to.
I mean, one woman can have multiple kids. I mean, what? Why?
Yeah.
How is that supposed to?
And keep in mind that a lot of things that happened in that family were evil. The oldest son had sex with one of the slave women who had been given to breed with him out of this rivalry that they had. So give me 1 second. I got to answer the question.
Sure thing.
Actually,
do you want me to give you a second or not? Because you said give me 1 second. They just like, actually, no, I don't need a second. So I got your other
monogamous was for sinner. Yeah, this is the same person. Did I ever say that Adam was perfect? No.
No, you're not a Muslim.
I never said that Adam was perfect. No one ever said that. They're all sinners. Every man is a sinner. So.
Sword doesn't know what an idiom is. What idiom? Oh, okay. So Lonnie, thank you for confirming that you're Sword. I'm going to go ahead and hide you on this channel. Yeah, Sword is not blocked. I've blocked all his aliases. He keeps coming back with aliases. I gave him a 5-minute timeout, which was more than 5 minutes ago. But instead of just coming back after his timeout, he keeps coming back with aliases.
All right.
So the fact that I was already thought it was you, but just to be safe, I hadn't blocked you. But now that you confirmed it, I have blocked you as well.
So let's start with...
You can interact under your Sword name. Your timeout is done, but you need to interact with the presentation, not bring up random unrelated things. Yeah. Okay.
So let's look at scholarly assessments of hunter-gatherers and basis sociology, because this lets us know what you have to ascribe to God as an evil pervert if you choose to take the view that God endorses polygamy and thinks that men should be doing this. So all documented true hunter-gatherer societies are de facto monogamous. It is observed that wives almost always dislike and oppose the addition of another woman to the family across polygamous agricultural societies. So the ones that are sometimes polygamous are agricultural, and women are all unhappy with this. They dislike it. It makes them unhappy. They oppose it. Women in matrilocal easy divorce cultures also overwhelmingly prefer a stronger, quote unquote, patriarchal marriage to their own local tradition. These are 3 different points. First of all, if you want to go, the nature of humanity is seen in the least sophisticated cultures, then you go, okay, fine, they're all monogamous. If you go to ancient DNA, they're monogamous. Molecular anthropology, DNA, that ancient DNA indicates that societies were overwhelmingly monogamous, and they were also almost all default patrilocal, which means that a woman would go marry a man and be in his general band area, and other women would marry his brothers, and they'd have kids, and the cousins would very often be together. That is what molecular anthropology tells us overwhelmingly. So you go into hunter-gatherer, you have monogamous, which you would expect given what human beings are. Now you shift to farming communities, and you have stronger men able to impose themselves one way or another and get more females. Again, this is a condition that makes women unhappy. It is a condition that makes men who are unmarried unhappy. So the misery of women who are the first wives and the misery of the men who are unable to marry is somehow supposed to be what God thinks is great, especially since God commanded them to go out and multiply. What he really intended, according to these guys, is that a bunch of men cannot have that opportunity because the strong rich men are going to steal more women. So those men should die alone and never be able to fulfill that, just by sheer numbers, not by it didn't work out for them, not by anything else. No, just by sheer numbers. That ought to be preordained, because some men ought to like cleave somehow, be in union with somehow multiple women at once who are somehow not in union with each other. Finally, there's a very important point that women in these supposedly matriarchal, wonderful societies, they're really just matrilocal, and these cultures which are almost always easy divorce because men can just walk away and go live with another woman. That's supposed to be somehow, empowering in some way, because women's status isn't dependent on, they don't need no man. Their status is secured by their own lineage and their own inheritance. But we find that all the societies in which women now have the option to have a traditional marriage and have the dedication of a man to her, even with all the insecurity of no longer having your lineage property, women choose that overwhelmingly. These very few places where this still exists are completely falling apart because women are like, no, I don't want a man to just be able to wander off to another woman's house or be at two women's houses at the same time or whatever. I want this. In sociology, we find over and over again that polygamy is very harmful to women and children. It is a factor in significant morbidity and mortality in both. So if you want babies to die, you want a polygamous society. More children die in childhood in polygamous societies, period. If you want women to suffer more sickness and death, all other things being equal, you want a polygamous society because that's what happens. If you want societies to be more violent, then you want a polygamous society. All of these wicked things come out of polygamous societies. You change nothing else than this, and the society becomes less violent. More women have fewer illnesses and are less likely to die from various things. Children are less likely to die, especially from neglect and violence, in societies that are not like this. So because you are such a pervert, you believe in a God.
Hold on, I want to pause you for 1 second.
Go ahead.
I want to pause you for 1 second.
Yep.
Sword finally came back to his original name and says she's afraid to use scripture. Now, she spent the first hour of this presentation
on scripture,
talking about scripture, but you were too busy arguing with the chat. It's a plural. It means marriages. God is getting married many times. You see, it's polygamy in the New Testament. Doop-de-doop-de-doop. To actually pay attention. So what you need to do now, since you apparently missed the entire presentation, you need to go back from the start, watch what she says about scripture, and interact with that. Or you can interact with what's on the screen now, but you cannot distract with, oh, but she should be talking about scripture. Doop-de-doop-de-doop. She already did, you dumb shit.
Oh, and I'm going to again.
Right.
But again, your God is a God who wants children to die, who wants women to die, who wants children and women to be miserable, who wants boys to grow up without having real fathers present, and who wants a violent society. Now, sociologists somewhat goofily assumed that the reason why the societies were more violent is because there are more unmarried men. It's not just the unmarried men who are more violent. Polygamists are more violent. They are more evil. If you are, all things being equal, if you marry two women, you become more evil as a man. So women and children suffer more, men become more evil. They become more violent. Why is that? Because a man who feels entitled and feels empowered to grab what he can, that is a nurturing of evil in himself. So what a lot of nurture gets wrong. They think that nature is what you're born with and nurture is just what happens outside of you. No, nurture is what you cultivate in yourself. So the self-cultivation, polygamy is the self-cultivation of evil. And so men who cultivate evil in themselves are more violent. I mean, within their marriage, they beat their wives more, they beat their children more, but they're also more violent outside of their marriages, killing more people outside of their families. So their God is a God who is so concerned with their penises that they think are going to be able to get all these women, because goodness knows they're not going to be the ones at the bottom of the rung, that their God endorses all of this.
All right, so do have, he is technically on topic, and then there is a legitimate question as well from someone else. So Job became more evil and more violent? Do you understand what a society level statistic is, dude? Does that mean that every member of that society exhibits that characteristic, or does it mean that as a trend, this happens? Let me know in the chat. Let me know in the chat what you understand about statistics, and then let me know if you still think that's a relevant question. But now to the real question.
Second wife for Job.
Yeah, that's also true. That's also true. He's not a polygamist. Anyway, I mean, he could have picked a different biblical character, though, right? Anyway, can Mary relate this to our society where half of women will not get married and have children, and dating where half of young men are locked out of dating as women gravitate to the same 20% of men?
So women who are not going to get married are not in a marriage market. You are confusing a promiscuous dating atmosphere with an actual marriage market, and they're two very different things. Not that women don't do that too, but if men sleep around, they become more evil and violent. They steal more. Like if they say they're not going to go out and shoot somebody because they're sleeping with a bunch of women, they'll be more likely to steal from their work. They'll be more likely to do lots of things, right? Mm-hmm. So it is women who are promiscuous typically focus all of their neuroticism and everything inward. They become unstable mentally. Men become unstable mentally and then make it go outward into society. So women internalize violence more often. They'll also abuse their own children, but they internalize it within the family more often than outside the family. And men externalize violence into other places. So it is a very bad thing to have lots of sexual partners for both men and women. It's not good for you. It does not make you into a sane person. It damages you badly because we are made to form a union through intercourse. That is how the two flesh become one in a very real way. And that you lose part of yourself whenever you give that around. And then study after study has shown that. But moving on to actual polygamy, which is, somewhat legitimated promiscuity for some. There are also scholarly assessments that were made of the reality of pre-Christian Israel. And this one, if you'll take off the quote so that we can see the slide.
Oh, yep. Sorry about that.
So
just let me say one more thing.
Mm-hmm.
Sword of the Lord claims that his people said you blocked them all from responding.
They're all you, dude.
So the exact minute I timed you out for 5 minutes, another name mysteriously enters the chat, but it's your people. Okay.
And you forget which person you're chatting under too. Anyway, let's
But that aside, what I really wanted to say is I found your email. I'm replying to your email now. You can stop with all the dumb posturing in the chat. And if you don't want to interact with the stream, because you don't apparently want to, then you can just wait for your debate day and leave us alone. If you want to interact with the stream, then you need to actually interact. When you make a point and I push back on that point, you need to address it, not just spam the same point again or correct it because you said, what about Abraham? Did polygamy make him more violent? That did not in any way address the point, other than your stupidity of appealing to Job when Job didn't have 2 wives.
Yep. So I certainly didn't have 2 wives at the same time when there's no indication of that. Anyway, against Betzid's contention that monogamy evolved as a result of Christian socio-economic influence in the West. So Betzid basically thinks that West Asia, Betzid's area of expertise, is later in history and is in early Christian history and that kind of stuff. Here is someone saying that, no, here's the reality. Monogamy appeared widespread in the ancient Middle East much earlier than that, in Israel's pre-Christian era, and essentially monogamous ethos underlay the Jewish creation story of Genesis 2 and the last chapter of Proverbs. So these are scholars who want to date Genesis to the time of Ezra because of goofy scholar traditions, okay? But they're saying that by the time of Ezra, the ethos expressed in the Bible itself, in Genesis, is monogamous because reality was monogamous at that time by the second temple period. So, and the last chapter of Proverbs, because what's the last chapter of Proverbs about? It's about seeking out the virtuous wife. You know, the virtuous wife who can find her prices far above rubies, et cetera, et cetera. That is about finding the singular wife. There's no view in that anyone would be looking for another wife. If you have a wife, she has kids, you wouldn't look for anyone else. During the Second Temple period, apart from an economic situation which supported monogamy even more than in an earlier period, the concept of mutual fidelity between husband and wife was quite common. A quite common reason for strictly monogamous marriages. Some marriage documents explicitly expressed a desire for the marriage to remain monogamous. So we have lots of physical marriage contracts found in various places across the ancient Near East that said, this marriage will be monogamous. You will not take a second wife. Examples of these documents were also found in Elephantine, which was, of course, that Sword of Satan doesn't know this because he is of Satan, but Elephantine was the Jewish
sword
settlement.
Had to be given another time out because he resorted to grotesque messages.
Of course he did.
Calling women various names, which if he wants to call me names, that's one thing. But if he's going to attack my chat, that's quite another. But then he said to me, I think, that I'm a homosexual loser because I hate women or whatever. Oh, I guess he wasn't timed out. I guess they were just deleted. No problem. I'll go ahead. I'll go ahead and put you on timeout. You're not straight anymore. You don't like women. And again, I believe in the biblical teaching of marriage.
What does Sword of Satan think of women as? As objects to be taken and made his to own. Sword of Satan does not see women as other human beings. As he does not see them as imagers of God. They're his objects and possessions. And this kind of attitude, this is why it's linked to killing women, killing children, violence in community, because that kind of looking at an imager and saying, I will take you. I will take you. You belong to me. I will abuse you. So,
and I did call you names. I did call you names. And I said calling me names is fine. You're not being blocked for calling me names. You're being blocked for telling women to suck your dick. That's why you're being blocked. Okay. That is not appropriate and it's not allowed on my chat.
And you're gone completely because, again, he looks at an imager of God and that's what he says, because to him, because he is a son of Satan, they are not imagers. They are booty. There's something to steal. There's something to own. There's something to lock away. There's something to use. like a paper towel. That's what he sees in them. So again, sort of Satan is a worshiper of the devil. So again,
and don't bother sending any of your people. You're done for today. I responded to your email. You can get back to me on a debate, but you are done for today. Yes. I've had enough of your childish, grotesque behavior in the chat.
And if you like women, that means if you care for women, you see them as an imager and you follow God's treatment of them, which we will get into in a moment. I want you to compare the idea he hears a woman's voice and he's like, oh, I want to stick my dick in her. Well, she needs to shut up and suck my dick. Compare that to what God says. So we have son of Satan and we have God. So Elephantine was a Jewish settlement on an island right north of the first cataracts on the Nile, and where a whole bunch of Jewish people lived. A lot of them were idolaters, but they're still better than son of Satan here, sort of Satan here. And we have examples of these documents from that location. They also resemble those found in neighboring Assyria and Babylonia. Again, ancient Near East was overwhelmingly already de facto monogamous because that was what fathers thought were in the best interests of their daughters, and women thought were in their own best interests. Someone would only become a first wife. They're like, I want something in writing. I want something in writing. All right. So continuing on, same source, study shows that in ancient Middle East societies, though not strictly monogamous, they were practically, at least at the common learned levels, monogamous. Halakha of the Dead Sea sect, these are the Essenes, most likely. So these are the Dead Sea Scrolls. They saw prohibition of polygamy as coming from the Pentateuch. So they read the Old Testament. These Jews before Christ read the Old Testament. It says God's design is monogamy. God's intention is monogamy. We need to follow monogamy. Christianity adopted a similar attitude. What? Coming from this understanding of the Old Testament, which conformed with Jesus's approach. Ooh, weird. So, and by the way, the Dead Sea Scrolls were actually looking at Genesis 2 as well. That was what they appealed to explicitly. This is God's pattern for mankind. This is what we should follow. So this conformed with Jesus's approach. Michael Coogan said that, polygamy continued to be practiced well into the biblical period, and it's attested among the Jews as late as the 2nd century CE, which is true. There were very few Jews, and all of them were the ones who didn't follow Christ, who for various reasons wanted to use the law and its biconditional allowances to allow them to do wicked things. All right, so under judges in the monarchy, old restrictions went into disuse, especially among royalty. Though the books of Samuel and Kings, which cover the entire period of the monarchy, do not record a single case of bigamy among commoners, except for Samuel's father. And what happened there was evidence. Hannah was barren, so Elkanah decided to take another wife who had kids, much to everyone's misery. The wisdom books, for example, Wisdom of Solomon, which provide a picture of the society, Sirach, Proverbs, and Kohelet, that is Ecclesiastes, they portray a woman in a strictly monogamous family. So all portrayers of women are in strictly monogamous families. The book of Tobias speaks solely of monogamous marriages. Also, prophets have in front of their eyes monogamous marriage as an image of the relationship of God and Israel. Again, we have these non-Christian scholars saying that the image of God and Israel is of a monogamous marriage, the faithful God and the faithless Israel. Roland de Vaux, sorry, my French is criminal, states that it is clear that the most common form of marriage in Israel is monogamy. So, The Mishnah and the Berai taught clearly reflect a monogamous viewpoint within Judaism. This is the Talmud. Some sages condemned marriage to two wives, even for the purpose of procreation. Our Ami and Amora states, whoever takes a second wife in addition to his first shall divorce the first and pay her ketubah. So polygamy was not outright banned among European Jews until a synod around 1000 AD, but it was explicitly banned after that point. So here's the question. Why was polygamy permitted at all in the Old Testament? Well, the Mosaic law is almost always...
Before you get to that question, let's pause here for a second. We did have a different polygamist. This is definitely not the same guy. This guy is way more polite and and such in here, and says, listen, dudes, often there's less men around compared to women, say, due to wars. Do you want to deprive a woman of getting married to a man who is often healthy, able to provide because of monogamy?
That's just not true. There are not... in almost all cases, there are fewer women once you get into the 20s, because so many women died in childbirth. Men did not die in wars at the same rates that women died in childbirth. So that's just not true.
And it's certainly not, it's certainly irrelevant.
It's certainly not justification. Oh, these poor women, they won't be able to get married unless they condescend. That's not what happened in any society that's ever recorded. And if you go to the pagan societies that practiced polygamy and things like that, a huge percentage of the time, they killed a bunch of their daughters at birth. So at birth, you already have a skewed metric because they're killing their daughters because they have a low view of women.
And
no one wants you, dude.
Comment,
and what's really funny is this.
Hey, Mary, come on. Let me at least read it first before you insult him. Why would a healthy woman want to marry an unfit man like me who has less means over a strong, healthy alpha male that she was attracted to, even if it's polygamy?
First of all, your first wife will kick you to the curb and throw you out. And by the way, this goofball is running around with a stupid fake Latin name that's not even in the correct format because he's a goofball who watched Gladiator and doesn't understand how Roman names work. But he's taking Roman name. Romans were monogamous.
But he's Maximus. He's Maximus, Mary.
And it all ends with must. It's very funny. It's really embarrassing to have that name, by the way, and pretend to talk about history. It really reflects, the name reflects your knowledge of history. So, no. The only women who take polygamy are those who are so poor that they don't typically have other options, and prostitutes who are already kind of working women in one way or another. No. It's not good for women. It's not good for men. It's not good for society. Going, but we get to spread our alpha male genes around is the most goofy and pathetic thing that I think I have ever heard.
Well, I've definitely heard goofier things, but any case, let me take a couple super chats before we resume. So first, Fraldarius said, "What a weird stream." Yeah, it's just a normal stream. What are you talking about? Randy with 5 gifted. Oh, I guess I need to fix that. Apparently, that didn't work. We'll just not have the thingies today. Randy said, with the 5 gifted, thank you very much for that. I guess my code is not working properly for some reason. I'll look into that. I redid a bunch of stuff, and I can't test everything while not live, so I will look into that. Lit W said, "Hey, Thad, please deliver 1 and 2 debates, David Wood versus Maleek, or debate Sam Shamoon versus Thad." I mean, I definitely want Sam Shamoon versus Thad. Sam responded. I'll have a video out on that shortly. I don't think that Sam is ever going to debate anyone on any topic in a moderated, proper debate. He only wants to debate people on his channel where he can mute them and insult them as soon as he gets trapped, let alone something as sensitive as his qualifications. However, I'm going to keep pushing on it. As far as David versus Maleek goes, we don't really want to we don't want to lend David's credibility to Maleek.
No.
Because he's
a doxer, so he's blacklisted permanently. Just so you all know.
And Fraudaria said, "Stop everything and debate me on who is the best anime girl." Yes, that's about as the level of argument coming from Sword, which from Celtic Cross. He's not here probably. He probably left, but
yeah,
he's overcompensating. Maybe Needle of the Lord would be a better description. Indeed. And one more super chat from our Kitsune. God bless from, sorry, I don't know what country. I don't know my flags. Is that Germany? T and 2MM. Sorry for the unrelated question, T, but Thaddeus and too many Marys. But I know you worked in data for quite some time. What bachelor or master do you got? So my undergraduate degree, and thus the one that's relevant to my work as a data analyst, is in actuarial science. All right, back to Mary for the presentation.
Back.
Or not. Okay.
I'm not sure what flag that is going that direction in those colors. Sorry. I'm not.
Yeah, there's two guesses in the chat. Belgium and Romania.
No, Romania is a different color. It's blue, and that one looked like the color of Belgium. Let's see. It's been a while since I used to look at flags. Ah, there we go. Belgium.
Okay, Belgium flag.
Sorry about that, guys. Ooh, wait, where?
Oh yeah.
Germany. I just lost. Here we go.
It's the same color pattern, but it's vertical instead of horizontal, like that.
Yeah. I was like, no, it doesn't have the emblem in the middle. But anyway,
Mary's the worst doxer.
It's been a while.
Yeah, she's terrible at doxing.
All right.
Oh, that reminds me. I was going to do something. I'll do it next time. All
right. We are now halfway through the stream. Look at that. So the Mosaic Law is almost always dealing with biconditionals, as I have mentioned before. It provides temporary instructions within a cultural context for a people who are not able to be regenerate. No one in the Old Testament is regenerate. They're living within a culture and a society. It is giving them guidance of having this precondition. If this happens, then this. That precondition is not an eternal, unchanging thing. It is culturally bound. And B, it's not necessarily a great thing. Christ himself gives the answers to why men were allowed to divorce at all. Moses wrote this commandment for you because of your hardness of heart. Because Israel is full of wickedness, allowances were made. Things were permitted that were not the best. Why? Because if they hadn't been permitted, then worse things would have happened. Men would have just slaughtered their wives or starved them to death or prostituted them with no escape or whatever. So this, given that they are unregenerate and wicked, and this is the preconditions of the society, then this is the outcome. There's actually kind of a funny story. There was one guy who, in China, was the emperor, took overthrew the other people, tried to start his own dynasty. He ended up being a one-dude dynasty because one of his bright ideas is that he wanted to get rid of slavery. And the commoners rose up and rebelled against him for getting rid of slavery. Why? Well, because he didn't get rid of all the other rules that made it so that they needed to sell themselves into slavery or else become guilty of all sorts of horrible crimes. So now you have the choice of dying or being guilty of a crime because you couldn't sell yourself into slavery anymore. So they rebelled, and he ended up being overthrown because the punishment for being criminal in these various ways was almost always death or something really horrible. So Like, they're like, what? We can't sell ourselves into slavery? Well, now we're going to become outlaws and campaign against you, and better to die with a sword in our hands than to give ourselves up to be slaughtered because we can't sell ourselves into slavery. And it's a very funny instance, but it kind of gives you the idea of if you try to do something that someone might think of as good. This emperor actually didn't care about the peasants. He didn't like that the nobles were running around with so many slaves. He thought it was making them uppity. But even if you wanted to do something good, given the circumstances of the society, what might come of it might be an evil. And these were laws given for people in a certain context. Early Iron Age through the end of the Iron Age into the classical era. That's the time period that we're looking at in the society that we're looking at here, until Christ came and gave us a better law. So this would then be good as a least bad given a precondition, thus the biconditional nature of the law. As many allowances as were made for their hard hearts, that it should be easy for Israel to follow this. It should be easy because all of these allowances were made for the fact that they cannot be regenerate. Israel still failed. Israel still did not do this. Now, what replaces the Mosaic law? In every case, Christ's law of love, it is more morally restrictive, not less, and it is a more perfect expression of God's goodness. So what we have is no longer a law that is spelled out, that of course immediately people tried to circumvent because, again, wickedness of their hearts, but a law that is a principle-based law that Jesus expresses famously, comparing what his standards are and God's standards, because he's God, what God's standards are compared to the much easier standard that Moses was given. Thou shalt not murder. Jesus said, anger without reason. That these unjust anger, this anger of that you feel when someone cuts you off in traffic, that is the equivalent of murder in terms of being the same variety of crime. Jesus is not teaching here, by the way, that these are equal in severity, that all sin is equal in severity. No, he doesn't teach that. That would be goofy, and God doesn't teach silly things like that. But anger is an infraction of the principle behind the command not to murder. Adultery with a married woman, lust, or unjust divorce are both infractions of the principle behind the law, the goodness that is expressed in the law. These are also infractions of that same law. And again, swearing falsely, don't take an oath and then not keep it. Jesus is like, you don't have to make a special oath to still need to keep your word. Like, don't lie to people, even if you're not taking an oath. So these come from these expressions for humanity are there to point to the principle and always were. You are always supposed to understand from do not murder all the related things that are related to murder and the feelings that are related to murder. You're not supposed to go, do not murder, and go, oh, I'm a great person. I've never killed anyone. No, when you meditate on the law, you were supposed to understand the principle behind it, even though this was not something that Israel was told to keep, because no one keeps that. We are all sinners. We all transgress against that, but we are to understand the principle that we transgress behind the expression of its ultimate form, more or less. So then we come to the example in Mark where Jesus spoke on polygamy. People don't realize it if they're polygamists because, of course, to be a polygamist, you don't care what the Bible actually says. But Jesus actually speaks on polygamy here as well. So some Pharisees came to test him. Jesus, is it lawful for a man to divorce his wife? They inquired. What did Moses command you? He replied. They answered, Moses permitted a man to write his wife a certificate of divorce and send her away. But Jesus told them, Moses wrote this commandment for you because of the hardness of your heart. However, from the beginning of the creation, God made them male and female. For this reason, a father and mother will be united to his wife, and the two will become one flesh. So they are no longer two, but one flesh. Therefore, what God has joined together, let man not separate. So he's saying this was in the Mosaic law and was allowed, but it is against God. Okay? God permitted that which is not good, is displeasing to him. Why? For the prevention of worse evils. Because, women might be adulteresses and men might hate their wives and otherwise kill them. I mean, so.
Right. So just the principle, right? The principle here and with Jesus's other and teachings that Mary's been going over, Jesus says like the law has a purpose, right? There's a reason behind the law, but the law is not equivalent to morality. The law given to Moses is not equivalent to morality. God's higher purpose, right? His higher morality is something different than what was allowed by the law in this particular case.
Now let's continue. So the illiterates stop here and go, oh, you can't divorce anyone. You can marry as many as you want. You just can't divorce them. Even if you aren't if you're not very bright and can't understand what Jesus is driving at, you can be dumb enough to make that mistake. But if you continue on, even a stupid person is being told here at the end that polygamy is adultery. Let's listen to this. When they were back inside the house, the disciples asked Jesus about this matter. So he told them, whoever divorces his wife and marries another woman commits adultery against her. So, how is he committing adultery by marrying someone else? Because he divorced her. And this is, again, if we look more fully, without a just cause, and another passage that's the parallel to this. So if you have not actually separated from her, you are still bound for her. So when you marry another woman, it's adultery. What is the thing that's adultery here? It's having two wives. Trying to bring in a second wife when you have one already, that is adultery. This is what Jesus is teaching here. And if you are an incredibly stupid person, you will miss this, as polygamists almost always are. And he continues, if a woman divorces her husband and marries another, she commits adultery. Why is she committing adultery? Because she has two husbands, because she is still bound to the first, because it wasn't a legitimate divorce. So there is a parallel here in equality. The divorce of the man in remarriage and the divorce of the woman in the remarriage, when they are still bound to the previous spouse, is equally adultery. They are committing adultery because they are having intercourse with someone else while still bound to their spouse. So Christ begins by rebuking their hard hearts, which he teaches that the Mosaic law contains allowances for. So Mosaic law contains allowances for divorce and also for, it never actually endorses polygamy, but it says that if there is polygamy, then this. So Christ then goes exactly where I've gone, to the teaching of God in the creation account and the emphasis on the exclusive oneness of a husband and wife. So it's the oneness, it's the unification of husband and wife, why divorce is bad. He further clarifies to his disciples that remarriage and the context after an illegitimate divorce is equally adultery for a man as for a woman. A man can no more be married to two than a woman can. A man is specifically committing adultery against his wife, though he married a second woman. A wife can only be a victim of her husband's adultery if she has the sole legitimate claim to intimacy with him. It is adultery on the basis that the previous marriage still stands because a divorce is illegitimate. Thus, if a husband and wife are married, he cannot marry another. And yes, it is a tawheed of the husband and wife. It is unification. That would be the translation into Arabic. So
real quick, before you go on, Islamic knowledge is obviously a Muslim or
wait, you're saying anyway. Wrong. Islamic ignorance.
Well, we know from many previous streams that he's not really a Muslim, right? He has his own unique beliefs, but he claims Islam anyway. Anyway, he has this brilliant pushback. You can have multiple wives at one man, and they all become all flesh. 4 wives plus 1 husband equals 1 flesh.
That is the most idiotic thing that I've ever heard. Congratulations. Literally, dude, no one has said that, not even the polygamists. That is grotesque.
And you're ignoring what Jesus says. The 2 shall become 1 flesh. He doesn't say the 2 or more.
Yes. And also say that. And again, Jesus is saying here very explicitly, if you are marrying another woman, you are committing adultery. Why? Because you are still married to the first. So trying to take a wife when you have a wife is adultery. That is what Jesus says. And I know you hate Jesus, but that's what he says. Just admit you hate him and move on. All right. Now,
real quick, Mary, I did want to make a point here, right? Any kind of like logic, I hate to use that word, but any kind of logic like Islamic knowledge here is not going to get you only men can have multiple wives, right? It would also get you that women could have multiple husbands.
Yeah.
And of course, he wouldn't agree with that, right? But for some reason, even though the logic definitely doesn't fit his beliefs, he's still like, look, I solved the logic. I'm so cool.
I know, right? All right. So, Islamic marriage, 1 + 1 + 1 + 1 + 1 equals 1 flesh. Now, 1 Corinthians 7:1-4 is also very important. Now, concerning the matters which you wrote, it is good for a man to not have sexual relations with a woman. Paul is now writing back to somebody about whether or not it's good to abstain from intercourse. And he says, but because of temptation, sexual immorality, each man should have his own wife and each woman her own husband. So how many is in view here? 1 for each. 1 woman, 1 husband, 1 wife. It is a parallel statement. Here's the important thing. The wife does not have authority over her own body, but the husband. Likewise, the husband does not have authority over his own body, but the wife. So the wife has complete authority over her husband's body by virtue of their marriage in Christianity. If you do not agree with this, you are not a Christian. You're done. Wives have full authority over their husbands' bodies. And this is in terms of all sexual acts and intimacy acts in the exact same way that husbands have over their wives. Now, in this, there is perfect reciprocity. There is reciprocity of monogamy in the first statement and reciprocity of authority in the second statement. For the polygamists, that might be a big word. You should try to look it up. Now, John Chrysostom stated this.
Sorry, I know that you've moved on, but I do want to help out the slow here. So Islamic no knowledge says Mary said Jesus said polygamy is adultery. Can she share which verse she mentioned? I'm really interested. If you're really interested, why is your volume off? Well, I guess it's on. Why are you not paying attention though? Why are you not?
He should pay attention because Jesus said that trying to marry another woman when you're already married, when you still have a standing marriage, is adultery. Marrying someone else, marrying a second woman, is adultery.
Now, I'm going to help you out, right? Because I want to help the slow. If you are married 1 time and you get married a second time, that's adultery. What does that rule out? Marrying 2 times. What is polygamy? Marrying 2 times. You following? You following? I hope so. But if you need more clarification, just let me know.
Yeah, that's what
Just let me
happens
know.
whenever you marry cousins too many generations. That becomes difficult for you. All right, so John Chrysostom on 1 Corinthians 7:4 speaks about this. He says, now if neither husband nor wife has power even over their own body, much less have they over their property. Hear ye, all who have husbands, and all that have wives. If ye must not count your body your own, much less your money. So he's saying that property and each other's bodies belong to each other equally. A man can't run off and support another wife. He can't get married to someone else. A woman can't run off, pay for another boy toy. She can't get married to someone else. You have full authority over one another's bodies, and the money is held in common between you. He says, elsewhere, I grant that he gives a husband abundant precedence, both in the New Testament and the Old, and he gives a bunch of examples. But in this place, we hear no more of greater and less. But this is one and the same right. Now, why is this? Because his speech was about chastity, intercourse for the slow people at the back. And all other things, says he, let the husband have prerogative, but not so where the question is about chastity. The husband has no power over his own body, neither the wife. There is great equality of honor and no prerogative. So there's no prerogative that men have over their sexuality that it belongs to them. The wife has full prerogative over them, and they over their wives. We also have medieval commentaries on 1 Corinthians 7:4, just in case you think that he's off on his own, doing his own thing. We have Theophylact of Ochrid, who says that this is Eastern Orthodox, an Eastern Orthodox individual. Now he proves that love for one another is indeed a necessary obligation. Spouses do not have authority over their own bodies, but the wife is both a slave and mistress. Here, mistress means the female master of her husband. So she's both slave and mistress, and likewise, husband is both master and slave of the wife. Thomas Aquinas, who is in the West, the wife does not rule over her own body in regard to the act of generation, although she could, by her own choice, be continent or give herself to someone else. So she can't give herself to someone else. Likewise, the husband has power over her body as to the use of carnal union, but the husband has power over her body as to the use of carnal union. Likewise, the husband does not have rule over his own body, but the wife. So Thomas Aquinas here in the West is saying that the wife has the same rule, that he cannot give himself over to another woman in this passage. Now let's jump back in time to early church figures other than our buddy John Chrysostom on 1 Corinthians 7:4.
I got to help out Islamic knowledge again here. He says, I went back and she just made the statement and moved past.
I read it.
The Bible verse. What's wrong with asking for verse?
Right here. Would you take that off?
I asked it.
Mark 10, 2-12. If you drop that off, he'll be able to see it.
Mark 10, 2 to, yep. I will take this down. Mark 10.
Ooh, 2 I read it.
To 12. And there's a parallel passage in Matthew and in Luke.
All right. So Origen of Alexandria said, you should sleep with your wife, not for your sake, but for hers. And this particular 1 Corinthians 7:4, that the wife has the ability to demand from her husband his intercourse. This was a man writing to him going, oh, I want to set aside earthly things. But my wife, and Origen's like, no, I don't care what you want. She has a claim over your body. She has that authority on you. You need to do that. Lactantius said there would be no adulteries and debaucheries and prostitution of women if it were known to all that whatever is sought beyond the desire of procreation is condemned by God. And Lactantius is speaking in reference to 1 Corinthians 7:4, saying that this marital union in context is what he's saying, is that the marital union, which is itself a procreative union, whether or not children come of it, but that the purpose of the marital union is procreative. The purpose of it is to have the one flesh and become the imager in multiplication. So it doesn't matter if you're completely sterile. Life is not, there's full of sin and disability and other things. And of course, we all go through stages of life where we're no longer fertile. But what he's saying is that this marital union of one husband and one wife, which is connected to 1 Corinthians 7:4 in context. I just pulled out the one sentence because the whole thing is kind of long and wordy. That is what God's model was from the beginning.
Okay. So Islamic knowledge says, yes, divorcing your wife and marrying another, possibly younger girl is terrible. Oh, good. We agree on that. You got a serious problem, though.
Because Muhammad wanted to do that.
That's why you should keep the old wife, and if she's infertile, you can take care of both. But he said divorcing your wife and marrying a younger woman is bad, terrible. Oh, but Allah permits that.
Yep. And what Jesus is not saying here is that it's bad. He's saying it's adultery. This is not zina. This is not fornication. This is adultery. This is a word that only refers to a sex that transgresses a marriage bond. And the reason is because the bond is not broken.
Mm-hmm.
The bond is not broken. You are still actually married to her. Even though you said the words divorce, you aren't actually divorced. You are not divorced from her. You are still married to her. So when you marry someone else, that is adultery, because now you have two. That's what's adultery, is having sex with someone else. In the same way that a woman getting wrongly divorced and marrying another is adultery. Husbands cannot have two wives in the same way that wives can't have two husbands. That is what Jesus is teaching. And everyone except for Islamic ignorance understands this.
Hey, I want to give praise where praise is due. Islamic knowledge, congratulations. You've reached the portion of the stream, which seems to happen every stream, where you have officially left Islam. You've said that Islam is terrible. That Islam is terrible. We agree. We agree 100%. You are right. The teachings of Allah and Muhammad, which I repeat myself, are terrible. You should stop pretending to follow those teachings and actually find a belief system that you can agree with and call yourself, I don't know, Christian knowledge, for example, instead of Islamic knowledge. Just a thought. Just
ridiculous. All right. So now let's look at Ephesians 23-33. Husbands, love your wives as the church loved and gave himself up for her, that he might sanctify her, having cleansed her by the washing of water and the word, so that he might present the church to himself in splendor, without spot or wrinkle or any such thing, that she might be holy and without blemish. In the same way, husbands should love their wives as their own bodies. He who loves his wife loves himself. Therefore, a man shall leave his father and mother and hold fast to his wife, and the two shall become one flesh. Wow, it's the same thing again. Once again, we're going back to Genesis. The pattern is the becoming of one flesh, and Christ and the church. Remember? Christ, church, singular Christ. In all of these passages, the bride of God is always a singular figure. Even though it is a composite, it is a singular figure. Again, he who loves his wife loves himself. They should love their wives as they love their own bodies. You hate your wife if you're marrying a second one. You hate her. Bluntly, you hate her. This mystery is profound, and I am saying that refers to Christ and the church. So whenever he's talking about the mystery here, is the union of Christ and the church, of which we are imagers. That is the profound mystery. However, let each one of you love his wife singular, as himself, and let the wife see that she respects her husband. So husbands are supposed to love their wives as themselves, not go, oh, honey, I want another one because you're not enough. No. So, loving the wife as himself, Christ is never faithless to his bride. That is the singular, overwhelming image throughout the Old Testament and the New Testament of God and Israel, Christ and the church. God is never faithless. He's always, always faithful to his bride. Never has another. He has a singular bride. That is his bride. He is faithful to his bride. The husband's love is self-sacrificial, not self-seeking. This requires the renunciation of any desire that is hurtful to the wife. You cannot say, oh, I love my wife as myself, but I want to put my dingy-dingy in someone else. No, that requires the renunciation of any desire that's hurtful to the wife. And by the way, Muhammad absolutely knew that it was hurtful and harmful for a man to take another wife. In fact, he said that he got really mad at Ali because Ali wanted to have another wife/sex slave. He's like, none, the rest of my daughter's husbands have asked for that because they know it hurts my daughters, and so it would hurt me. So Muhammad was perfectly willing to hurt his own wives. He was perfectly willing to hurt the daughters of his friends. He didn't care. He knew that it's hurtful and harmful to women, did not care. He just didn't want anybody doing it to his daughters because he actually cared about them.
Mm-hmm.
The husband is to place the wife at the level of his own body, not placing his mere lusts above her. So of his body and its well-being itself, not of a fitful urge. So John Chrysostom had a lot to say on Ephesians 5. He said, yea, even if it should be needful for you, men, to give your life for her, your wife, yea, and to be cut into pieces 10,000 times, yea, and to endure and undergo any suffering whatever, refuse it not. Though you should undergo all this, yet you will not know, not even then, have done anything like Christ. You think John Chrysostom says, oh, you know, man, if you kind of want to put your penis in someone else, go ahead and do it, because that's fine. No. If it should be needful for you to be cut into 10 pieces 10,000 times, refuse it not. Though you should undergo all this, yet you will not know, not even then, have done anything like Christ. For thou indeed art doing it for one to whom you are already knit, but he for one who turned her back on him and hated him. In the same way then as he laid at his feet her who turned her back on him, who hated and spurned and disdained him, not by menaces, nor by violence, nor by terror, nor by anything else of the kind, Muslims, but by his unwearied affection, so too do thou behave yourself toward your wife. Yea, though thou see her looking down upon you and disdaining and scorning you, yet by your great thoughtfulness for her, by affection, by kindness, you will be able to lay her at your feet. For there is nothing more powerful to sway than these bonds, and especially for husband and wife. A servant indeed, one will be able perhaps to bind down by fear, nay, not even him, for he will soon start away and be gone. So basically, if you terrorize your servants, even they will like run away from you eventually. So why would you treat your wife this way? But the partner is one's life, the mother of one's children, the foundation of one's every joy. One ought never to chain down by fear and menaces, but with love and good temper. For what sort of union is that where the wife trembles at her husband? And what sort of pleasure will the husband himself enjoy if he dwells with his wife as with a slave and not as with a free woman? Yet, yea, though you should suffer anything on her account, do not upbraid her, for neither did Christ do this. And then there's a further description and a break. I'm kind of skipping because it's very long. And then he says, so then she was unclean. So then she had blemishes. This is a wife you might not like. So then she was unsightly. So then she was worthless. Whatsoever kind of wife you shall take, yet shall you never take such a bride as the church when Christ took her. nor one so far removed from you as the church was from Christ. And yet for all that, he did not abhor her, nor loathe her for her surpassing deformity. Would you hear her deformity described? Hear what Paul says, for you were once darkness. Did you see the blackness of her hue? What blacker than darkness? But look again at her boldness, living, said he, and malice and envy. Look again at her impurity, disobedient, foolish. But what am I saying? She was both foolish and of an evil tongue, and yet notwithstanding, though there were so many were her blemishes, yet did he give himself up for her in her deformity, as for one in the bloom of youth, as for one dearly beloved, as for one of wonderful beauty. So this is about treating one who is unworthy with the greatest of tenderness, is what is being said here. And it was in admiration of this that Paul said, for scarcely for a righteous man will one die. And again, in that while we were yet sinners, Christ died for us. And though such as this, he took her, he arrayed her in beauty and washed her, and refused not even this to give himself up for her. So those are several of the passages from Paul. Let's go back to Mark 10:11, the one that Islamic ignorance.
Oh, Islamic knowledge. Are you still here? I hope you're still here, because we're going to have a second chance to understand this.
Yeah, passage. You're going to have a second chance to understand this one that was so difficult for you. So Athenagoras said, these are commentaries relating to Mark 10:11. We hold that a man should either remain as he is born, not married, or else marry only once. For a second marriage is veiled adultery. So Athenagoras is does not even want men to marry a second time. A second marriage is veiled adultery. Basil of Caesarea said, this declaration of the Lord, this is 10:11 again, applies equally to man and woman. It prohibits departing from marriage except in case of fornication. So you can't depart from marriage except in case of fornication. Why? Because what does that become? It becomes polygamy. That's why. Bede says in Matthew, it was more fully expressed, whosoever shall put away his wife, except it be for fornication. So Bede's this is the link between Mark 11 and Matthew 9:19. The only carnal use then is fornication. The only spiritual cause is the fear of God, that a man should put away his wife to enter into a religion, as we read that many have done. But there is no cause allowed by the law of God for marrying another during the lifetime of her who is quitted. So you cannot marry a second, if your previous wife is alive, period. And this is her. So men, you can't marry someone else. Even if you have divorced a woman, this is not, if you don't divorce her, you can have two. This is already excluded. This is Bede here, writing in England. There's no plurality of marriage here. Augustine of Hippo said, for a woman is bound as long as her husband is alive. As a consequence, therefore, the husband is also bound as long as the wife is alive. This bond renders any further union impossible without the implication of adultery. Hence, 4 adulterers are produced of necessity from the two marriages, if the wife remarries and the husband remarries and the husband remarries an adulteress. However, a more infamous, so he's basically saying if there were 2 divorces and 1 remarriage, this kind of switching partners in this theoretical idea, everybody involved is doing adultery, right? However, a more infamous adultery is imputed to the one who remarries after the dismissal of his wife for other than the cause of fornication. Matthew spoke of this type of adultery. Such as one is not only the one who commits adultery, but as we read in Mark, whoever puts away his wife and remarries another commits adultery against her, and if the wife puts away her husband and marries another, she commits adultery. So
just real quick, we got a new character here in the chat. This is actually a second message, but I didn't read the first one. You demons inflicted me with PTSD. I don't recall inflicting you with PTSD. I have no idea what that's about, but I'm sorry if you were traumatized by someone at some point. and now you're demanding monogamy. F off. This is karma. I mean, what first of all, I don't think you know what karma means.
No, he's also a crazy person.
Because how would you choosing to not listen to me have anything to do with me getting karma from giving you PTSD, which I didn't do? This is just like so dumb. But I guess the logic is I experienced some sort of trauma in my life. I want to have polygamy, therefore I deserve polygamy. I think that's the logic. I'm not quite sure. I mean, this guy obviously is not. I mean, someone said karma's pagan. Well, I mean, that guy's clearly not a Christian, right? I think he's an atheist. His little thing is
a pagan symbol anyway. It's a Hindu pagan symbol. So
yeah, I mean, I don't think he's pretending to be a Christian, right? I don't think he's some weird heretic freak. I think he just doesn't. He just likes polygamy for some reason. I don't know what went wrong in your life, but maybe like actually listen to what's being said instead of just being like, F you, my life sucks, therefore I can have polygamy. Like, get an actual argument.
He's like, people treated me badly, so now I should treat women like trash.
I guess.
I need to spread the misery. I need to be an absolute dirtbag, create fatherless children, effectively fatherless children, and just be a complete dirtbag. So yeah, maybe that's it. So yeah, the
triggered Shogun. Yeah, I think that's about it. Because I mean, I didn't like do anything to this guy, right?
No.
He chose to come in. I didn't. It's not like I made him watch his presentation.
I know, right?
He came in here, and then he's like, "You're causing me trauma. You're triggering my PTSD. Polygamy is the answer."
I guess he's like, I need to spread around the misery to other people because I'm a miserable, horrible person. So I need to make other people's lives miserable and horrible. So. Makes sense. Anyway, so we find again the standards for the overseer. If anyone aspires to be to the office as an overseer, he desires a noble task. That's bishop. Therefore, the overseer must be above reproach. And then from this above reproach, we now basically get a definition of what a good person is. Who is a person who is above reproach in society? So here is above reproach in society is a person who is the husband of one wife, sober-minded, self-controlled, respectable, hospitable, able to teach, not a drunkard, not violent, but gentle, not quarrelsome, not a lover of money, etc., etc. So the first standard, the first thing that defines a person who is above reproach is that he's a husband of one wife. And then we find, let deacons be each be what? The husband of the one wife. So the first thing in a list of here's what a decent man does. Here's what a decent man does is what? It's to be the husband of one wife. Omniscient Shogun, you are a dead end, a genetic dead end, and you have
his earlier comment was against Darwinism, so I don't know. I thought like this sounds like he's claiming to be a Darwinist, but earlier he said humanity's doomed because of Darwinism, so I don't really know what
his line is definitely
Stephen envy. Oh yes, I am very envious of you and your very well-adjusted life where you go into random chats and complain about things that you could
sure
just
that I would be
ignore.
Envious of a Jamaican. I'm sure that's very likely.
Tawhid Islam has arrived. Mary, we're saved. Tawhid Islam has arrived. And he says polygamy is very beneficial in real life. I know you just got here. So I won't blame you. But I do strongly encourage you to go
back to the beginning.
Well, yes, the beginning. The first section is on the Bible.
Yep.
I know you're just going to gloss over that section. Get to the second session where it's about practical real-world statistics about polygamy and see how beneficial those really are.
So, polygamy causes violence, death, misery. But, he likes it, so it's all good. Anyway, so the definition of being a decent human being as a man starts with being the husband of one wife. That's number one. And this was in the context of a society in which everyone gets married. So in this context where basically everybody gets married, what is a decent person? It's a man who's only ever had one wife. If you have had more than one wife, you fail the first point of decency. All right. So Justin Martyr here is dressing down the Jews and mocking them because of their Bible perversions. Okay? And he's pointing out how the Bible that they recognize, the Old Testament, supports the view that it upholds monogamy as the superior state. So, yes, so Tawhid Islam can only imagine being kind to widows if you marry them. Otherwise, you would let them starve to death. Again, this is Islam, everyone. Aren't they just filthy? Unless you pay, it's prostitution. Unless you let me put my penis in you, I'm going to let you starve to death. There we go. That's it, everybody. That's Islam.
The only way in Islam you can help needy widows or poor women is by giving them money for sex.
So
Other than that, there's no possible way you could help them. I mean, you wouldn't just give them money out of the generosity of your heart. I mean, that's completely and totally foreign to the idea of Islam.
That all ugly and old women are going to starve to death and die. And the hot young widows, they can be someone's third, fourth, fifth wife, be treated like trash, but at least they can eat. Versus, Christianity, where the first recorded charity is in Acts, where they had the widow's table and were supporting all their widows. Crazy. How do you help disabled men? Well, you have sex with them too, clearly.
Yeah. In Islam, you can have sex with disabled men too. That's what the beauty of Islam is.
That's how you make sure that we take care of the poor men and the disabled men. How do we help them out? Well, we just prostitute them, right? All right. So let's go back to Justin Martyr. He's having a dialogue with a Jew, and he points out that in the Bible, there's a verse that talks about each sitting under his own vine, which means that each man possessing his own married wife, which is what it means in context. He's exegeting correctly. And he says, for you are aware of the prophetic word says, and his wife shall be like a fruitful vine. He is making a correct comparison or correct connection here. That is what it means. If then the teaching of the prophets and of himself moves you, it is better for you to follow God than your imprudent and blind masters, who even till this time permit each man to have 4 or 5 wives. And if anyone see a beautiful woman and desire to have her, they quote the doings of Jacob, called Israel, and of other patriarchs, and maintain that it is not wrong to do such things, for they are miserably ignorant in this matter. So here he is, roasting some pervert Jews who are perverting scripture in the same way that I have roasted others. And do keep in mind that before Jesus, there were plenty of Jews who read the Old Testament correctly and understood monogamy from it. And he says, Theophilus, who died in 180, said, but far be it from Christians who to conceive of any such deeds. That means, in context, it's about the various goings on of various other groups of people, right? For with them temperance dwells, self-restraint is practiced, monogamy is observed, and chastity is guarded. So
we got one more comment. This might be the last one from Tawhid Islam. Sex is very important in female life. So you see, polygamy is really just a mercy on women.
A mercy.
They wouldn't get to have sex without polygamy.
You prostitute. I mean, imagine the depravity of this. Oh, you want to have dinner, don't you? You gotta let me have sex with you. I mean, the Dawa boys do this all the time. Aren't they so revolting? Either have sex with me or you starve to death. There you go. The mercies of Islam, everyone. So Clement of Alexandria in condemning a Gnostic cult, he's talking about two different Gnostic groups. He says that the followers of this particular Gnostic cult, they think that wives should be common property. Through them, the worst colony has become current against the Christian name, because some of the Gnostics ran around, like Muslims, claimed to be the true followers of Jesus. They were running around going, we're the true followers of Jesus. This fellow, Epiphanes, whose writings I have had, was the son of Carpocrates, and his mother was named Alexandria on his father's side, etc., etc. He lived only 17 years, and he was honored as a god, and there were things dedicated to him with altars, sacred precincts, and museum. Museum there means a religious building. Doesn't mean what we call museum. So talks about all of them. So here's a description of all of their beliefs, but again, they had sex with multiple women. Once again, following upon, and that the having sex with multiple women is what is a calumny against Christianity that they claim to be Christian. Irenaeus of Lyon said, others again follow upon Basilides, and this is the same group as before. I put all of this in here so that you could see kind of what they believed in. Having introduced promiscuous intercourse and a plurality of wives, and are indifferent about eating meat sacrificed to idols, maintaining that God does not greatly regard such matters. So this is a list of people who are doing wicked things. But why continue? For it is an impracticable attempt to mention all those who in one way or another have fallen away from the truth. So here are the things that they do that fall away from the truth. Having a plurality of wives is falling away from the truth. So indeed, shameful music for these guys. Orgies are a mercy from Allah. Praise Allah in the name of Allah. So Tertullian.
I mean, it checks out, right? Because he said that women need sex, right? Women need sex. The earlier comment was that rape is a mercy from Allah.
Yeah,
indeed, right? Show my comment, he says. Show my comment, he says. What I love about Islam, it deals with real problems in our lives. Yes, we all have this very real problem of needing 4 wives. Christianity does it, says, don't give divorce to your man, even if he is drunkard weasel. I don't recall Christianity saying that, but
no.
it's illogical.
Every single division, every single sect of Christianity has divorce from a bed and board. They all do. They all have divorce from bed and board. They do not all have divorce for remarriage. Those are 2 different things. But they all have divorce from board and bed, and that is a real thing. Anyway.
However, I don't recall Islam giving a woman a right to divorce her man.
No. If he slaps her upside the head, if he slaps her in the face, then she might be able to ask for a divorce. But if he beats her every night, right? Yeah, it has to be the face. If he beats her every night and he's not beating her in the face, it's like, well, I think she's uppity, then he's completely within his rights. He can kill her and he will not suffer a terrible penalty. He will suffer a very minor penalty. He cannot even be made to pay a full blood money for killing her. So, I mean, it's just ridiculousness. Trying to claim that Christianity, it's so mean to women, but in Islam you beat your
I mean, supposedly this is a problem with Christianity, which he doesn't even understand Christian doctrine. But supposedly it's a problem with Christianity, which, if it's a problem, then it's clearly a problem with Islam, because a woman can't divorce her husband because she doesn't like him or whatever, right? Only like very, very specialized circumstances can a woman ask for divorce. Let's just like she's in a mishar marriage and she demands her full rights and he refuses to give it. Then she can demand divorce.
Oh, yeah. Then she can. But her
in general, no, right?
Of like a roof over her head and food to eat and clothing, and how much clothing, what kind of roof, and that sort of thing. Very, very limited. All right. So Tertullian wrote an entire treatise on monogamy called "On monogamy. There we go. Very, very on the point here. He says, heretics do away with marriage. Psychics, and here is meant Gnostics. That's his word for Gnostics. Gnostic is only a term used in some in certain contexts. So it was invented by Irenaeus to describe certain people, and then was adopted much later on. So he's using his term that he's made up for psychics. They're like those people who consider themselves to be spiritual, basically. So psychics accumulate them. The former marry not, even once. The latter not only once. What do you do, law of the creator? Between alien eunuchs and your own grooms, you complain as much of the overobedience of your own household as the contempt of strangers. They who abuse you, do you equal hurt with them who use you not? In fact, neither is such continence laudable because it is heretical, nor such license defensible because it is psychical. I'm not going to go into why it was they said that they could marry lots of women or sleep around in certain Gnostic circles, but it's complicated. Anyway, the former is blasphemous.
I mean, it doesn't matter. It's Gnostic.
It doesn't really matter. They just do. The former destroys the god of marriages. The latter puts him to the blush. Among us, however, whom the recognition of spiritual gifts entitled to be deservedly called spiritual, continence is a religious life is as religious as license is modest, since both one and the other are in harmony with the Creator. Continence honors the law of marriage, license tempers it. The former is not forced, the latter is regulated. The former recognizes the power of free choice, the latter recognizes a limit. The limit here being one. It's on monogamy. It's about how all Christians are monogamous because Christ taught monogamy. And so all actual Christians follow monogamy. And it's the weirdos who are trying to run away and say, we're the real followers of Jesus, who don't. And that's it. We admit one marriage just as we do one God. The law of marriage reads an accession of honor where it is associated with shamefulness. But to the psychics, since they receive not the Spirit, the things that are in the spirits are not pleasing. Thus, so long as the things which are in the spirits please them not, the things that are the flesh will please, as being the contraries of the Spirit. So that is perverts who run after lots of sex, are against God, and do not have God's Spirit. The flesh, says the apostle, lusts against the Spirit, and the Spirit against the flesh. But what will the flesh lust after except what is more of the flesh? For which reason withal, and that the beginning it became estranged from the Spirit. My spirit, says God, shall not permanently abide in these men eternally, for their flesh. So then we find Methodius talking about the banquet of the 10 virgins. He says, and thus from the time of Abraham, the custom of marrying with sisters has ceased. So he's basically saying that people used to do things that were bad, and it stopped. And from the time of the prophets, the contracting of marriages with several wives has been done away with. For we read, no, go not after your lust, but refrain yourself in front of your appetites. For wine and women will make up men of understanding fall away. And in another place, let thy fountain be blessed and rejoice with the wife of thy youth, manifestly forbidding the plurality of wives. This is in Proverbs. This is Proverbs 5, where it says, let your fountain be blessed and rejoice with the wife of thy youth. Fountain here is the sexual pleasures within your own household with your singular wife that you married while you were young. And Jeremiah clearly gives the name of fed horses to those who lust after other women. And we read, the multiplying brood of the ungodly shall not thrive, nor take deep brooding from the bastard slips, nor lay any fast foundation. So these are all passages in the Old Testament that Methodius is saying teach that though it was permitted, it is no more legitimate to marry multiple women than it is to marry your own sister. Bede also saw Proverbs 5 as teaching monogamy, which it was, which is which he said, let her breast satisfy you at all times, etc. He does not teach that one should always be occupied with conjugal work, but advises not to marry another while the first wife is alive or ever associate with a prostitute. So basically he's like, you have things outside of your marriage to pay attention to, but that does not include ever marrying with any other while your first wife is alive or ever having intercourse with a prostitute. So, in conclusion, spiritual adulterers pervert God's teaching. Over and over and over again in the Bible, you have a picture of monogamy being presented as the ideal, being presented as what humanity was made for, being presented as that which is the completeness of imaging, being presented as the image of God and his bride. And over and over and over and over and over again in the Bible, you have infidelity and multiplicity, sexual multiplicity, being presented as turning away from God, sinfulness, rebellion, evil, idolatry. That is whoring. So when Israel whores after idols, this multiplicity of wives is put in contrast to the ideal of the one flesh union. The a female, a male that was created to be the imager. And we who together are the collective church, who are in union with God, is put in stark contrast to behaviors outside of this. It is for this reason that every Christian group in history that has actually been Christian has taught monogamy. Anyone else who's like, oh, God will let you be polygamous, they had other heresies. Why? Because they were Bible perverts. One follows the other. They have been linked from the beginning. That is why what does anyone who's the enemy of God want to do? First of all, undermine teachings on biblical sexuality, because it is in our sexuality that we are imagers of God. And in this relationship, that we either typify or defy what we were made to be. So we have those who hate God, who set himself up against God, who ally with Lamech and all the other perverts. And we have those who are devoted and faithful. So
I was laughing at this genius comment by Islamic Knowledge here, because it's so ironic, because he is partially correct. 3 times divorce and then wanting back is called a toxic relationship, on and off relationship. Marriage is no joke in Islam. So marriage is no joke, buddy. But in Islam, actually, yes.
It is a total joke.
A total joke. It's not taken very seriously at all. Well, I mean, it's taken seriously in the sense that people take business contracts very seriously, right? People take business contracts very seriously, and that's what marriage is in Islam, is a business contract.
Well, it's a purchase
I pay
of a
X
woman.
dollars.
It's buying an object. It's buying a slave for yourself. It's buying access to a vagina. It's not a union.
Yeah. A purchase contract. It's still a contract. But to be clear, a purchase contract. And I take it very seriously when I spend a lot of money. And you know, a woman is not cheap. So yeah, they take it very seriously, but it is a complete and total joke.
You and your talak. I mean, like, absolute joke. All right, my presentation is over. Islam is totally the joke. It is a perversion of everything. It is Islamic religion. It takes the perversion of the worst of the rabbis, because a lot of the rabbis were better. Like most of the rabbis opposed polygamy. Some of them allowed it. In fact, the maximum of 4. Justin Martyr, I think, was misremembering. I think the total number was 2 or 4, not 4 or 5. was just lifted straight out of the most perverted of the rabbis' allowances, which, of course, immediately Muhammad changed the rules for himself. But Carol says,
So
sorry,
there's a
Thaddeus, I
poll.
frequently click other like buttons, not just yours.
Yeah, there's a poll that says, do you have a monogamous relationship with the like button?
Well, it's
Yes.
the same like button across other channels. So
Yeah, with the YouTube like button, not my channels or this video's like button, but the YouTube wide like button.
Well,
although you could still not, right? You could sometimes hit dislike.
I hit dislike, so I'd have to say not.
Oh, but if you haven't done so, please like the stream. I got some comments throughout, which we'll take now. AK triggered the apple. Mikhail said, you're always going to love one wife more than the other, and the other wives are better since they are made in God's image and deserve to be loved fully.
Not just that, you're not loving any of them fully.
Correct.
You're just not. You're just picking another one.
Right. It's not really
pick a fruit.
Unequal. Right. Like, I mean, let's say hypothetically, I mean, yeah, actually you could definitely be married to multiple women and love them all equally, i.e. not at all, for example. That is a possibility. It's not really about unequal.
You just don't love them.
Fully loving someone means being devoted to them, right?
Yeah, you don't actually love them. What you get pleasure from their bodies, you enjoy them to some extent, but it's not love. So
absolutely. So agree there, but with that slight clarification. Sword said, have you considered that every man that marries more than one woman takes away the potential spouse of another man? Yeah, I mean, it's not really about that per se either, but I mean, just the created order tells you something, right? Because there are almost exactly, yes, there's not exactly 50.0% men and women in the world, but there's almost exactly 50%.
Yeah.
And it certainly is a rounding error, right?
Yeah. Well, if you aren't killing off
if you're not killing off
on purpose, then by the time you get to about 20, it almost always evens out pretty much exactly, because baby boys are more prone to dying in infancy than girls because of their something about the way men form as infants. Their lungs just aren't as well developed. They're more susceptible. I mean, men are just more susceptible to lung infections throughout life, and it was way more common in babies. And between that and the fact that boys are more dangerous, it pretty much evens out. It's like exactly even by the time you get to 15, unless people are killing off daughters on purpose.
And then I don't know what women Islamic knowledge is speaking for, but probably none. Right? He probably has no real women in his life. Women are comfortable with their husbands being another wife. Yeah.
No, they aren't.
What women are comfortable with that exactly?
Again,
women who've been groomed their entire lives and are still hesitant, i.e. Muslim women.
Muhammad himself said that it is hurtful. It is hurtful for you to one another to marry someone else. It will hurt my daughters. So how dare you do that? Because that will hurt me. Why? Why does he know it's going to be hurtful to his daughters? Because it's hurtful to any woman. Every Muslim sheikh who's actually talking about is like, of course women hate it. Of course they don't want it. You shouldn't take them into account. Of course women hate it. So why are you lying here? Go and actually look at sheikhs who are talking to Muslims, not outside, but to other Muslims, about marrying another woman. He's like, well, of course wives hate it when you marry someone else, but they're just stupid women. Why would you pay any attention to what they think? It's because they're dumb. Stupid women. Go marry someone else. No, they don't. Women overwhelmingly hate it. And men don't care, because in Islam, women are a vagina on legs. That is what they are. They are wombs, a vagina, and they are prisoners. They are called dirt in the Quran. They are dirt for men to use however they want. That's it. Why?
Plow
because
away,
men kill people.
Away.
men kill people really effectively, and women aren't as good at killing people. And Muhammad needed a bunch of men to like him to help him kill people. So he taught that women are their dirt, women are their slaves, women are their prisoners, women are filth and garbage, all except for his daughters, because he'll hurt his feelings if you're mean to his daughters. But all these other women, they're garbage, trash, stupid, disgusting. They say mean things and they're dirt. Because guess what?
Now,
they don't run around with swords killing people, and the men do, and he needed to make the men happy.
Yeah, because he needed the men to capture women to have as their sex slaves. Anyway, as far as his second part of this, even in evolution, you can see one lion get many lionesses. First of all, you need to learn what terms mean. That has nothing to do with evolution, right? But putting that aside, what you meant to say is even in nature, you can see one lion get many lionesses.
And guess
yeah,
what
you can see all
do?
kinds of weird things. You can see all kinds of things in nature, right?
What
you can
do lions do? What do lions do to all the cubs? When a new male lion comes in, what does he do to all the cubs? He kills them all. So that means that what men should do is that they should run around, grab a bunch of women, slaughter all their children, and then rape them so that they'll have more kids that are his kids and fight off other men. And then eventually another one comes and kills them. And the kids that aren't grown, the new alpha male will come in and rape all of them and have them have babies. And then some other man will come in and kill all the children.
I mean,
that's like the pattern. There we go.
Yeah, so the takeaway here is Islamic morality is derived from animal behavior. Yes, we know. And you can find any behavior you want in animals. You can find all kinds of behavior. Mary gave some information about lions specifically, but, you can find cannibalism within animals. You can find tons and tons of animals, right? Have no care for their young whatsoever. That they lay a bunch of eggs and then they never see those eggs again, or what they grow up to be or whatever, right? You can see all kinds of things. That doesn't provide an example for how you should behave, at least in my opinion. Now, maybe in Islam, you're like, yes, we are no better than animals. We animal. Oh. But I believe that humans are better than animals. I believe that humans are created in the image of God, whereas animals are not. But if you want to take your example from animals, Islam is a good religion for you. And yes, we are biologically animals, but we're not just animals. We are much more than that. And now let's get back to these comments. AK triggered halal hog. Songs of relief. This whole collage of polygamy is a great example of you will know a tree by its fruit. What is the fruit of polygamy? Misery. And even the people coming into the chat, right? Even people coming into the chat to defend it have been quite hostile and unpleasant individuals for the most part. There was at least one, polite person, but does seem to be a case of, know him by the fruit, huh? Believe that prophets did not sin is purely Muhammad's invention to avoid criticism. Can't Muslims see that? I want to make a correction here, Carol.
Well, he kind of said that when we sin, God turns that into into something good. What he kind of taught is that they didn't have any serious physical defects. It was his big teaching, but he did teach that he sinned quite a bit. That kind of, but the problem is he's teaching that he's a perfect pattern of conduct. He's also teaching that he will do bad things and like curse people without cause and stuff. And those really don't fit together, but Allah will turn into a blessing for you. And so what happened was later on, Muslim scholars had to go, how can he be the perfect pattern if he's doing bad things? They're like, he isn't doing things that are that bad. And they're just super, super, super minor sins. That's it. All the prophets, they couldn't have done anything really seriously wrong. Just, like super, super minor things is really, but it came from him being the perfect pattern of conduct. Because how can you have a pattern? It's not all that nice.
Yeah. So this is actually the slight correction here. Mary just explained it, but let me say it in different words. it's a doctrine that evolved over time. It's not really something that Muhammad taught. And I think a big portion of the reason it evolved, in addition to Muhammad looking like a disgusting freak and them having to explain that, was that Christians were saying, why in the world should we follow Muhammad? We follow Christ, who was a perfect human and never sinned. And like, because none of the prophets sinned. That's not unique to Jesus, right? Even though it is unique to Jesus, even in the Quran. So I think it evolved over time. Sword of the Lord, more like butter knife of the chat. And Sword did email me. I sent one thought, like, because he said, I want to have a debate, but I don't want there to be no any rules or any time limits or any moderator. And I said, that's not a debate. Do you want to debate or something else? And then he responds back with this 2 long paragraph rant, which I'm not going to read, but just a whole bunch of posturing and name calling and saying how we all need to discover the biblical polygyny, which, by the way, we haven't used that term this whole time, but that's just a way of people avoiding the negative idea of polygamy. When people say polygamy, they mean one man, multiple wives, 99% of the time, which is all polygyny means. So anyway.
And by the way, I just took the biggest things, the most obvious things. As was mentioned by the non-Christian scholars, there were a bunch of other passages that have in view monogamy, that monogamy is a pattern. It's the only pattern that's ever in view in terms of women. All of the warnings of Proverbs against going after various women who are not necessarily married to another. Some of them are. Some of them are adulteresses, but some of them are not. That you should be satisfied with the wife of your youth, as Ramon was pointing out here, that we touched on a whole bunch of them in passing, and I brought up Bede, who spoke on that as well, along with Methodius, I believe was the other one. So yes, that is very much in view as the ideal, in spite of counterexamples. In spite of counterexamples, all of which were miserable, all of which were miserable and the cause of sin. There's no polygamy, no polygyny that is not linked tightly to sin anywhere in the Bible. Misery and sin.
Yeah, so Steph is correct. He doesn't want to debate after all. He wants, I mean, in fairness, like, he could just say, no, I want a conversation or whatever. But he doesn't want a formal debate because he will be humiliated in a formal debate. He wants it to have a discussion where he can just interrupt whenever he wants and try to bully his way to winning a point. We'll see if I decide to engage with this loser any further. He said that he has an example on his channel. We will see. If I want to engage with him any further, I'll have to see how he actually behaves. Because as aggressive and stupid as he is in the chat, he might not actually behave that way when he actually has to talk to someone. Anyway, the point is, I will look, but it sounds like he definitely doesn't want what we would actually call a debate. He wants something different. Shockingly enough, he wants the guy who wants to call something different biblical marriage wants to call something that's not a debate. Shocking, I'm sure. Speedrunner with a super chat. Sup, RA and Mary. Even if you read the Bible as an atheist, you come to the conclusion that whoever bunch of people wrote it really hated polygamy.
I mean, that's literally what we were talking about. The non-Christian scholars who were like, yeah, they had a very negative view of polygamy, even though there were examples of it, that monogamy was that which is the ideal and the example, and that it was written by people who were against polygamy. This goofball is like, we have the religion that's based on the sacrifice to the prophet Abraham of his son for the sake of Allah. No, you don't. See, what you have is a pagan festival that the pagans previously did. Long before Islam, it was a pagan festival that you just co-opted. It's just a pagan slaughter of animals. Your slaughter of animals is exactly the same as the slaughter of animals that the Romans did and that the Nabateans did for their false gods, exactly the same. You don't know the meaning of Abraham's sacrifice. You don't understand the substitute. You don't understand why it is the Lord will provide. The Lord provides the lamb. The Lord provides the spotless lamb of sacrifice. You don't know what any of that means. You're just doing a twisted imitation.
We got this genius here, which I don't know if he just misunderstood you or what. He said, "Are you saying that Isaac was?"
No, he said,
that is so funny.
Well, I mean, that's what that I think he's making fun of. If he's paying attention, he's making fun of the Muslim who basically said who implied that the son was actually sacrificed. Although I don't think that's what he really meant.
Nah, I don't think that's what anyone meant. In fairness.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah, correct. The child was not sacrificed, but I don't think anyone, Muslim or Mary, was.
Well, he kind of wrote it like it. The original guy kind of wrote it like it was. What's really interesting is that there is a Jewish tradition that Isaac actually was sacrificed, came to life again, and then the ram was sacrificed. Very interesting stuff, and that is tied to the Passover lamb. That was done after Christianity to try to get rid of Jesus. Basically, so there is this.
I mean, that's very strange.
That makes no sense. Yes, it's very strange.
Because if that was actually the story, that would be even better typology.
Yeah.
Foreshadowing, right? I mean,
yeah.
Whatever. Anyway, let me try to get through these.
Go for
it. Carol said Jesus's pronouncement on monogamy did not come as a surprise to any cultural norms.
Nope, only that the divorce
monogamy was normative.
Yeah,
the monogamy was normative at the time and throughout biblical history. Yes, the kings had many wives, but that was not normal for normal people. It was a special carve out for them. Ordained by God, but for a very specific reason. Monogamy was the norm throughout biblical Israel for some reason. Do you marry homeless men too? Yes, that was very funny. Now, Islamic, this was his first comment when he came in, and we did address some of his other ones, but we didn't address this argument. David also called Jesus son of David. The same David had multiple wives.
My goodness.
Guess
what? He's also the second Adam, and Adam sinned and caused the fall. Come on, guys, Muslims, you're embarrassing.
I don't know what he thought his point was here.
His
I think he's going to chat. Maybe
if an ancestor of Jesus did it, it must be good.
Right, the ancestry of Jesus that has literal prostitute in it, right?
Yep.
just saying. Yes, all humans did bad things, and they're all redeemed through Jesus.
Got a comment. Muslim mind. Let's do female genital mutilation on women to reduce their sexual drive. Then allow men to marry 4 women because the female genital mutilation didn't work enough. So our women are super, super horny and they're going to sleep around a ton and they really, really need to be with a man, even if they're the 4th one, even though we mutilate them. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point because that genius earlier, I forget which of our 2 Muslims it was, but was saying that
women are too horny and they need
mercy
sex.
Because women are just desperately seeking out sex, and without polygamy they wouldn't get enough sex. So polygamy is a mercy on women. Although you would get less sex presumably in a polygamous marriage, so even that didn't make sense. But whatever. All right, let's we got oh yes. So this genius, this is I said I didn't bring up his first one, but I guess I had saved it after all. Women are hypergamous by nature.
Hypergamous.
Whatever. Giza left Tom Brady. That's insane. Women have no leverage to demand monogamy, especially with no V card. It shows you where he's at.
Yeah, and what's really funny is that he thinks that he doesn't even know what hypergamous actually means. They're so stupid. These people are so stupid. It is shameful. I feel such pity for your parents because I would die of humiliation if any of my children were this stupid, even if they were very young. This is just bad. So hypergamy means that women marry, gammy means marriage, above hyper. It doesn't mean many. It doesn't mean lots. It means that women prefer to marry above their social status. Whereas men on average prefer to marry hot women. That's all it means. So how would Giselle leaving a very rich man have to do with men preferring to marry rich men?
Well,
she didn't leave him for someone who's richer.
Yeah, you're smarter than me because I stupidly bought into what he intends the word to mean without thinking about it. What he's trying to say is women are attracted to multiple men.
He's trying to say that they're sluts and that they'll always trade up. That is not what the term means. It means that women marry status, whereas men marry hotness on average. That men are more interested in looks and women are more interested in status. Giselle did not leave Tom Brady because he lost social status or she found someone else's social status.
Yeah,
that's like the worst example ever, by the way, because she ditched him because she was mad that he chose his job over spending time with the family after all of those years of very, very intense work and you know, his job was very consuming. She's retired from work basically, and she wanted more time with family, and she was just so mad at him for that, leaving all her weirdness and their weirdness, and they're not nice people.
Yeah,
aside,
I mean,
leaving all that aside,
celebrity marriage is like some kind of normative thing. First of all.
Well, yeah, but I mean, this is an example that even Tom Brady can't keep her because she's so hypergamous. She didn't trade him for somebody richer. She left him because he wasn't caring for her. And even though he was keeping up his status and making more money, so he was getting more status and more money, but she was upset because he didn't quit the status and money for her, which is
so what she wanted was love and affection.
Yes.
Or at least time, right?
Time. She wanted his time. Yeah.
And so that somehow provides the normative example of women being sluts. Okay. Super chat from Songs of Relief. And again, the super chats are not working. But I will make it so that A will work when they work again. If you take a candle and add it to another candle, you will get a bigamy flame.
Bigamy flame. What?
Oh, that's good. I like that. That was good. Best argument for Islam hijab has ever come up with. Songs of Relief. The same men who promote polygamy would be very hurt if their wife wanted a second husband or if she took up with a second wife in revenge. They convince themselves it's different. Yeah, it's very strange, right? No one, I mean, there might be someone somewhere, but essentially no one ever argues that women should have multiple husbands.
Nope.
But it would be the same, whatever argument you could give would be the same.
Yeah.
Oh, there's more. In some societies, there's way more men than women. Therefore, right?
Women live longer than men on average.
Women live longer.
And they will inherit when their husbands die of old age. They will inherit and they'll be rich old widows. So shouldn't the rich old widows marry up as many of the poor young men as possible? Because the only reason you would let people not starve to death is because you're having sex with them in Islam. So.
Yep.
Yeah, that's basically it. That's basically it.
Most Muslims live in third world countries. They can't even afford to get a goat to F, let alone for wives.
And that is why
that's why the rich guy's got to get 4 of them.
Yeah, well, that's also why we get animals in first world countries get sexually assaulted when a whole bunch of Muslims move in, because that's how they see intercourse. They see it as, again, having an object to have intercourse with. The details don't matter. They are just very sexually entitled and think that things exist for them to put their peepees in. So. All right, and I knew it was the previous one, the previous stream that was just talking about Maleek brought out the weirdos, so I knew this one would too. So.
We got the guy with 10 different personalities. Oh, I sent all my people and you blocked them all.
Even though he responds whenever you call him by his first username, his new username responds. He's not smart enough to remember what username he's using. It's just funny. So
I know.
Yeah. And Guardian points out that in Muslim countries, men will kick out old women because she's no longer able to produce offspring or clean the house. Islam. So the polygamy of Islam involves throwing out old women you don't want anymore, and throwing them on the street to die and starve to death because you would rather spend that money on a new hot woman. And that is within Islamic law. If a man stops being attracted to his wife, she ought to give up more and more and more and more until he's willing to tolerate her and allow her to stick around. Otherwise, you can kick her out to starve. So don't give me, how else will those poor single women find men? A lot of the times, those men who can't afford 2 wives, well, they kick out the old one who's raised their children and get someone else.
A mercy indeed. A mercy indeed.
All right.
I got a few more comments. This one's a legitimate question for you, Mary. Can we get a copy of the PowerPoint?
I will go and upload it now.
All right, I will get that added to the video description in a few hours. Daniel B. also said, I'm curious, what should a repentant person do if they find Christ later in life having multiple spouses at that time?
You should stop having intercourse with more than one. And you should continue to support the other one if you are a man who is supporting multiple women who are not in a position for them to, they have kids with multiple women, then they should continue supporting them, but only have intercourse with the one and be a father to the others. So that's what you should do.
And
easy peasy.
AK, I think the bot is not seeing you for some reason. It's not responding to you.
And it should be the first wife, by the way, unless she has no children, and then you would be doing a disservice to the children that you actually have. It should be the first wife, the one that you betrayed. So,
but I think that the it is an interesting question. It's obviously not something that's really explicitly dealt with in scripture, but as Mary said, you kind of reason out the principles based on what you do find in scripture. Oh, bot finally saw you. I said it was ignoring you, but it finally saw you. It's just running behind apparently. Anyway, you reason out what to do with that situation, because it's obviously a bad situation, right? It's not like the women in that situation deserve to be kicked to the curb or whatever. And I think Mary's solution is quite reasonable, in line with scripture there, that you don't financially abandon anyone, but you start practicing sexual monogamy anyway.
All right, I just added the link to the chat.
I'll get that added to the description after the stream is over.
So I sent it to you in this chat because my link with my phone is not currently working well, so it'll be harder for me to send it that way. So I send it now.
Yep, no worries. I grabbed it. No worries. We're good there. Anyway, that was a good question. Thank you for that. Chad USA said, I had a friend that thought he could do multiple women thing. His wife even gave him permission. Guess what happened? It ruined his life. Yeah, I'm not surprised.
Oh, yeah.
As much as a woman might think that she'd be okay with it, it's not going to end up being okay for sure. And even if theoretically the first wife was okay with it, that doesn't mean the other women would be, right? It's just going to create all kinds of problems. As the Muslims were in this chat quickly pointing out, no, you can't have one woman with multiple husbands. They'd be jealous of one another and they would fight. And yeah, that's the problem. And the same is true when you have multiple wives. AKA triggered Halal Hog a couple times earlier as well. Super chat from Speedrunner. Too many Marys. Can you recommend any book or video that refutes the idea that Romans forced Jews into monogamy? God bless you both.
So there was a law in the 400s, or excuse me, in the late 300s that told Jews that they had to stop marrying because, of course, the Jews who were wicked were those who rejected Christ. And among the wicked things you might want to do is polygamy. So those who wanted to be polygamous remained in Judaism. And in the late 300s, I believe, there was a law that, so to be a Roman citizen, you had to be monogamous. And they made the Jews citizens, which meant that they technically had to be monogamous, but they just continued not being monogamous and they weren't prosecuted for it. But there was nothing before that time that would make them forced to be monogamous. It had to do with the Roman citizenship and the laws about citizens and things like that. So technically, if you're a Roman citizen, you're supposed to be monogamous because they were under Christian law by that time. Jews were made Roman citizens, so technically they were supposed to be monogamous, but those who were like super perverts still just didn't do it. It wasn't until AD 1000 that it was made Jewish law with no exceptions for Jews not to have any multiple wives.
Islam acknowledged, leaving Islam once again, says Almighty God says to marry one which is better, but only in special circumstances. I assume polygamy only in special circumstances. There's nothing like that in the Quran. There's nothing. No, there's not. Marrying one is better.
It says that if you want more than one, do it. And it does not say you have to treat them equally. It says
this is fairly.
Oh, it doesn't. It says give them their due. Like each one has their own. It's not fair in comparison to one another. It's you have to give each one their rights.
Right.
What they
give them their, as long as you can meet all of their due rights, right?
Yep, their basic needs.
Then you can marry more than one. But if you can't meet all of their rights, like you're too poor and you can only afford one house or whatever, then you should marry only one. It never says that's better. In fact, it's implied it's inferior, that the inferior person can only marry one.
And just like the inferior person has to marry a slave instead of a free woman.
Absolutely. And then he had this wonderful little straw man. Are you saying men and women are the same? Are you promoting feminism or sex is just a social construct? No, I didn't say anything remotely like that.
That's
Deal
deeply
with what
regarded.
I actually said.
Congratulations. Oh, and there's a final super chat. Muslim men can marry Jewish women.
There's more than just one.
Sorry,
Mary. If you need to go, you can go, but I got more comments I need to read. You seem very eager. Songs really says a biblical mindset: do unto your wife as you would have her do to you if you were swapped. Quranic mindset: do unto your wives whatever mode permits.
Correct.
Yep. That is 100% accurate. Thank you for the super chats today. Songs of relief. I'll get the super chat animations working for next time.
If women are uppity, if you fear uppityness, even fear uppityness in women, scream at them, beat them, abandon them. If your man actually is uppity to you, give him everything he wants until he's willing to put up with you. That is in the Quran.
Yep. Thank you for that donation. Steph says divorce doesn't mean anything in Islam, since marriage doesn't mean anything in Islam. Nothing matters in Islam except satisfying self.
That means who owns you.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it means something.
It means who owns you. It means who has the milk over you, who has the dominion over you, who is your possessor, who is your mahram, who is your master.
Mm-hmm. And as usual, Islamic knowledge is so stupid. He doesn't actually understand the point that someone raised, saying that John, how did? Oh, sorry, it was Tawheed.
That's Tawheed Islam.
Yeah, sorry, it was Tawheed Islam. The comments are right next to each other. I misread which one was which. Anyway, you dumb? How John Baptist died in Bible? It was horrible death. Was he false prophet? That's not the point. The point isn't Muhammad died a horrible death, therefore he's a false prophet. The point is that Allah in the Quran said that Muhammad would die a very specific way if he was a false prophet, and then he died that very specific way. It has nothing
according to Muhammad's testimony.
Horrible. Mm-hmm.
Muhammad's own testimony is that he was dying that way. So if you want to call your prophet a liar, and he's just wrong, but your prophet died the way, according to his own testimony, that Allah said a false prophet would die.
Yep, that's the actual point there. Glad to clear that up. Protestant believer used the highlight to also trigger Aisha's goat is eating the Quran. Very true. Love that animation. In the U.S., men have wives and side chicks. Islam makes the concept halal by accepting the side chick as your wife, so it's not hidden. Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right. People do sinful, evil things, and Islam says, no problem. It's no longer sin.
Yeah, that is exactly it. Islam says, hey, this is, if you're going to be a disgusting, revolting little pervert and all you care about is what you can put your dick in, come and follow us. We've got the religion for you. Our God is into men having sex with anything. We've got a way to make it okay. That is why you should follow me and kill people for me. That was the selling point of Muhammad to the perverts who followed him. Good job. Thank you for pointing that out.
That is nonsense. If that is true, why would Allah wait 4 years and let Prophet Muhammad complete the mission? And once again, Muhammad is the one who testifies. Muhammad is, in my opinion, having a deathbed confession that he's a false prophet and he knows it. That
Muhammad
is
said,
and it's not
is
time
Muhammad
limited,
a stupid liar? Is Muhammad a stupid liar that he's saying that he is dying this death? He says he feels his aorta being cut. Why would he be confessing to a death that he believes will only happen to him if he is a false prophet? I don't care what he actually died of. He probably died of his esophagus rupturing, his gut spilling out into his body or something like that. That's what he probably died of. I don't really care. He died too slowly for it to be like a really fast aortic rupture. He believed he was dying the death of a false prophet. On his deathbed, writhing in pain and agony, he's like, Allah said that I would die this way if I were a false prophet. Now I'm dying this way. That's the point. He was confessing that he is a liar against God and that he was being punished. This is his deathbed confession of his punishment. That's why they wouldn't give him anything to write with, as he begged for it. He begged for a paper and pen to confess his sins and say, don't follow this evil that I concocted. I am a wicked man, as he's lying there going, I am dying from the poison that was supposed to test whether or not I'm a false prophet and only kill me if I'm a false prophet. And I am dying from my aorta being cut, which is the only way that I would die if I am a false prophet. That's it.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to say he's wrong, fine, he's wrong. That's not really the point. The point is he is the one claiming that he's dying the way that a false prophet dies. Speedrunner asks, is there a possibility for a very devoted Muslim woman to be granted Allah's mercy and turn into a man? And Jana, surely that is the greatest reward.
Nope.
A black person can turn into a white person, but I don't think I don't think gender swapping exists.
And in fact, if your husband, if you are a super, super awesome woman and you'd make a really high heaven and your husband just scrapes through and he's bet the lowest one, you get thrown into the lowest one with him. You don't get the one that you actually are. You get thrown into the lowest one with him. And then there's a whole bunch of other wives and you're trapped in his house forever. You're still wearing a niqab for eternity and you never look at another man. He goes out to the market and he leaves you at home. So, like, you're a prisoner forever. There you go.
But see, that's a mercy. She gets to be with her husband instead of all by herself in a different heaven.
And she could hate his guts and it wouldn't matter. She could hate him with every fiber of her being. And if he didn't divorce her and she didn't remarry after he died, she's stuck with him forever.
So what a Muslim woman should do, like a pious Muslim woman should do, is make sure that her husband commits shirk so that he goes to hell. So then she gets her actual reward instead of his reward.
Right.
I think that is the I think that's the good strategy to use there.
Oh, by the way, imagine he murders her. He murders her and then he just barely makes it through anyway. She's married to him. She is married to the man who murdered her. Just want to be clear.
Lawful Good said, Muhammad finished what mission exactly? Islam didn't spread Islam throughout the world. He didn't preserve the Quran. His was split upon his death. Yeah, he wasn't all that successful. But, suddenly, right, after Muhammad died, they realized that the Quran had been completed because obviously it had to be completed, right? So then he died after it was finally revealed, even though he was revealing verses like days before he died. That's just the proof, you see. Ryman asked how I am. I'm doing great. Mad Monkey with a link. Dive into the system of deception in Islam. A Muslim earlier said, you can't provide any evidence. And he provided the evidence. Ryman also said, one wife and one husband was in the Old Testament, Proverbs 5:16-20. I know you came late, but we did go through all the biblical teaching. You can go back and watch that. Mad Monkey triggered the Apple, as did Triggered Christian. Super chat from Crazy3Iffy. Even in India, where Hindus worship gods with multiple wives, polygamy is frowned upon. Polygamy is a strict no-no. Yeah, in the modern world, polygamy is not really practiced pretty much anywhere. Maybe only in rich Muslim households or in the UK, apparently.
Yeah.
But even in the Islamic world,
there's a lot of cheating on each other and urfa marriage and everything else. As soon as the Islamic world got a hold of birth control, they went nuts. So there's that.
Yeah, it makes sense. But it is actually, I personally find it very interesting that nearly all human cultures have practiced what we would call biblical marriage, at least in some sense, right? They might not have the full understanding of it and they might not do it right, but they have valued one man, one woman relationship, which doesn't seem, I don't think you can get that from biology. And so it does seem to be a strong piece of evidence of it being divine law, that even all these societies that have no clue about, who God is and practice all kinds of weird pagan nonsense and worship 20 gods, they do seem to still understand marriage, at least to some extent, which I find very interesting personally. John Wilson said, should I be Mary's husband? I think I would spend a great deal of my time being rather fearful.
My husband's only very slightly afraid of me now.
Now, but that's after years.
That is after years. At first, he refused to get life insurance because he's like, I want to be worth more to you alive than dead. And I said, if you're afraid that I'm going to kill you, don't you think that I would have more reason to if you didn't have life insurance? Because I'd be mad at you. And then he got life insurance. Still alive, by the way.
So Islamic knowledge, after all this time, finally came to the excuse that he was supposed to get from the beginning. The big issue, the Arabic word translated as aorta in 6946 is a different word used in the Hadith literature. So both are different cases. That is, debunked forever. Apparently, Islamic knowledge has never heard of something called a synonym.
Yeah, they are synonyms.
You can use different words to mean the same thing. And there is no material difference in Arabic. They are true synonyms. Like true synonyms are very rare, but in Arabic they are true synonyms. Imagine this scenario. Okay, this is a thought experiment for you. An atheist is up there on stage, and he says, "If God were real, he would strike me with lightning right now." And then an electrical discharge comes out of the light fixtures. And as he's dying from being shocked by the light fixtures, he says, "I feel like God has sent an electrical charge to kill me." Would you say, "Oh, that's totally different. That's not at all him declaring that he was wrong. He still doesn't believe that God killed him." Because that's essentially what you're arguing in your little synonyms thing.
Except it's more of a synonym than that, because there could be other electrical discharges. It's more like...
I know, but I don't know.
Such and such, a man clothed in scarlet will come and get me. And then someone runs in and he's like, the man in red. They're like, red and scarlet, they're different words.
Yep, there you go.
That's the level.
Very dumb. But, I use that example because atheists do sometimes say that, right? If God were real, he would strike me with lightning right now. Anyway, Shameful Music said, Thad and Mary, have you guys looked into Islamic strategy of institutional embedding?
Yes,
a little bit, but nothing super serious from my part. And Mary also answered at the same time.
Yep.
And Speedrunner with a super chat. Muslim men can marry Jewish women. Is it also applicable to Quran 560 asking for a friend?
And that's the one. The ones shall tell thee of a worse case than theirs for the retribution of Allah. Worse is the case of him whom Allah has cursed, on him whose wrath is fallen, and whose sort Allah turned into apes and swines who serve idols, that sort of thing. So it's basically calling them dirty names. And yes, Islam says that you can put your pee-pee in people that you consider despicable. And so
no. That's not the joke. No.
Sorry.
No. Muslim men can marry Jewish women. In 560, Muslims or Jewish people are turned into apes and pigs. Can Muslim men also marry apes and pigs asking for a friend?
Got it. I mean, they certainly they certainly nikah with plenty of animals, so there is that. Maybe that's what happened to the river dolphins. They think that they're Jewish women.
Possibility. And potentially last messages here from Shameful Music. At the end of the day, the poison still killed him. No ascension to heaven from the land of the Jews for Muhammad. He died a false prophet. Anyway, you slice it.
Yep, because he's confessing that he's dying of the poison that the Jewish woman gave him to test whether or not he's a prophet. That he they supposedly defeated, haha, I'm a true prophet. I have defeated this poison. And then as he's dying, he's confessing to be a false prophet because he believes that is his aorta being cut and the poison of the Jewish woman, both of which are indications of false prophecy. So on his deathbed, Muhammad believed himself to be a false prophet.
And I have one more comment that we'll end on. But before that, what have you got coming up for us, Mary?
We will be doing something on the canon because it's really irritating both of us and has for quite a while that these goofball ortho bros and catho bros like to run around going, oh, you can't. There was this secret event where the bishops all got together and decided what was the Bible, and they made the Bible, and that's what you have. And it's basically taking these really dumb atheistic arguments that this secret group got together and made some things the Bible and threw out other things, except they're saying that the Holy Spirit made them do it. And that is a terrible argument for anything but atheism. It's just not true. It's just not true.
So this wasn't the comment that we're going to end on, but I had to bring it up. Tawhid Islam. Yes, brother, in Islam. So this is Islamic knowledge speaking to Tawhid Islam, to clarify. Prophet Muhammad said, I feel, not that it was actually cutting. These people are dead, dumb, and blind.
Let me try again. I know you're really inbred, but I know you can do this. Muhammad is confessing that he believes he is dying the death of a false prophet. So he is confessing that he identifies with false prophecy, that he is a false prophet, and that is why he believes he is dying by failing 2 different tests of prophethood, 2 different things that should kill him if he were a false prophet. Both of them, he says, are killing him. I don't care if he really got killed because he was kicked in the head by a stupid donkey. Farfur. I don't care. I don't care how he actually died. He believed he was being killed because he failed a prophecy test. Do you follow a man who believed himself to be a false prophet? Apparently you do. That's insane. I don't know what's wrong with you.
Yeah, he thought he was a false prophet, but he was wrong. He was a true prophet. He was a true prophet, and anyone who says otherwise, they must be dead instead of death, dumb and blind.
Yeah, Muhammad only thought he was a false prophet. He only thought he was lying. He only thought he was making stuff up. He was only confessing for it because he thought these things, but he was wrong. Really, he was a true prophet, even though he thought himself to be a liar about God and a false prophet. Really, he was just wrong. He was like, that happens all the time. People run around thinking that they're false prophets, but really they're really hearing from God. Guys, come on.
That's what you got to do. That's what you got to do. Thank you, Mary. You're confessing that Prophet Muhammad was actually honest and didn't just make up. He was being honest about his prophet.
So he is being honest when he was confessing that he was a false prophet on his deathbed. Why? That doesn't imply that he was honest before then. He is dying, and so he's confessing because he's scared of going to hell now for all the things that he's lied all along. You don't understand. You don't have, if I have a gun to your head and I say, tell the truth or I'm pulling the trigger, you might tell the truth when you've been lying all along. But that doesn't mean that, you've told the truth your entire life.
Therefore, everything you ever said is true.
On his deathbed. He is terrified of his death and is confessing his sins, desperate for absolution, which he will not find because he wasn't really repentant. He is in hell now because the only reason that he was desperately confessing that he was a false prophet is that he was hoping that God would forgive him, not because he was really sorry. So now he's in hell, and that is where you will be if you follow him. The fact that someone will confess something that they have lied about their whole lives on their deathbed, that's a known thing. That's a thing people do. That's a thing your prophet did. He told the truth
once, Mary, therefore he was a true prophet.
Yeah, he admitted he was lying along. So that means he was telling the truth all along because he admitted he was lying. Like, guys, I don't care how many generations you have of double first cousin marriage. That's painful. That's embarrassing and sad. You should feel bad.
Oh, man, I'm glad this stream ran a little bit longer because that comment that took the cake. But Songs of Relief says very much looking forward to the one about the canon. So we'll have that from Mary coming up, refuting. I'm not interested in, refuting Catholicism or Eastern Orthodox or whatever. In general, I believe there's true Christians in those organizations and there's false Christians in those organizations. Same as any other organization. But I am interested in this particular lie about the canon because it's an atheist talking point. Why are you giving an atheist talking point and saying, well, come to us, we believe in atheism?
I know, right? Nobody had any idea. There were all these things floating around and they could have picked anything. But this group of men got together and picked this and that's how you know it's true. It's so embarrassing.
So we'll have that coming up.
Jay.
As far as myself goes, I will be on Apologetics Roadshow in 30 minutes in theory, even though I sent David a thing saying make sure to post the stream. So while we were live, I'm like, I see you haven't posted the stream yet. Can you post the stream so I can redirect people? He still hasn't posted the stream, so I can't send you to the direct link. But at least in theory, I'm going to be on David's channel in 30 minutes. We'll be getting an update on Maleek, how he has declared victory, declared that David's career is over, that he's totally destroyed. And surprise, surprise, it's all thanks to the almighty Sam Shamoon, Maleek's new God and Savior, apparently. So we'll be getting that update in 30 minutes on my channel. This is the comment I wanted to end on. Marriage in Christianity is a covenant, but in Islam, it's slavery.
Yep, not
absolutely.
An exaggeration.
In Islam, you buy access to a woman's vagina that turns illegal sex into legal sex. In Christianity, to become one. And everything else, right? Everything else flows from that, doesn't make it any better. In Islam, marriage is just a particular type of slavery. Come to Christianity, true Christianity, that teaches the true doctrine of God, that marriage is a sacred organization, a sacred relationship, a very special relationship between a man and a wife that is not broken when properly followed, at least not broken by anything, cannot be at a second woman, cannot be between two people of the same gender. Everything that you see in the world, people sleeping around, right? That's a violation of the marriage doctrine of Christianity. If people were following biblical marriage and following it properly, the world would be a lot better place. So thank you all for tuning in today. Like I said, 30 minutes, I'll be on Apologetics Roadshow. Until we meet again, we will close out as we like to do, in the words of Pastor Jake.
Pray this ceaselessly. Lord Jesus Christ, Son of God, have mercy on me. Lord Jesus Christ, Son of God, have mercy on me. Lord Jesus Christ, Son of God, have mercy on me.